Hold on to your butts.
Hang on, we're in for some chop.
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Oh, somebody please think of the children!
Welcome to the DeEducated podcast.
What is up, DeEducated? This is episode 9. My name is Kris.
And I'm Mark, and I'm finger licking good. Ugh. At least I wasn't wearing my butt stuff t-shirt while I was saying that. You know that KFC in Japan is it's a tradition that they have there. Like
What is?
Eating
butt
KFC
stuff while eating finger looking good?
Well, it is Japan, so you never know. But
They're into weird stuff.
They are into weird stuff. Like there's and everything's in vending machines there, eh? In Japan, but not for the reason that people think that.
Including sperm donation machines.
Sperm donation machines, and you can actually buy like warm underwear and all sorts of stuff. But the main reason that they actually have them there is because they have such a workaholic culture that vending machines are basically so that you can get stuff 24 hours a day.
Is that why they're into such weird stuff too? Is it like they just take everything to the extreme? So it's like the work hard, play hard.
Yeah, I think so. Well, and let's be honest, they're on an island, and they're the only nation that ever got nuked. So they can pretty much do
whatever they want.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well,
like,
both America and Russia got nuked. They just did it to themselves during tests.
Yeah, like they could be like, hey guys, that's kind of weird. Hey, do you remember Nagasaki? All right, fair enough. Like it's just leave them alone.
Yeah, well, all right, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, well, what did you do this week?
So this week, obviously, I trained in Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and we're really focusing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and so I've obviously been bringing into Muay Thai around training with purpose and training in a way that's for longevity, right? Because so many people try to push too hard, they train too hard. I even had a student today mention, he goes, oh yeah, I haven't missed a class of Muay Thai or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he's like brand new, right? And I had to say to him,
3
like,
months.
yeah, I'd say, like, it's good, but take a day. It's all right.
That's a funny thing, you get people who are just like absolutely into the sprint, and you always tell them, because I'm doing this for more than a decade. Well, yeah. I've been running a gym for more than a decade. I've been doing a hell of a lot longer than a decade. And if I had a nickel for every time I saw somebody who was like, oh, I love this is my new thing, and just sprinted into the whole thing, and then 3 months later, got burnt out, but their body got burnt out and they ended up injuring themselves or whatever happened, and then you just never see them again.
Yeah.
And then on the contrast to that, you get the people that come in and they just, hey, this is kind of cool. Yeah, I'll see you next week. Well, I can only do like 3 times a week. I can only do 4 times a week. I can only do 2 times a week, whatever. Yeah. But they're consistent with it. And, those are the guys who have been with us for, basically 10 years and end up making it, real far, if not to a black belt level.
Exactly. And I think that's it's an important thing. And I know we're going to discuss some of these ways of keeping training longer and some longevity later on. But it was one of those things where, I saw it again today. So I just had to kind of mention it. And one of the other things this week is I actually put on 2 different events. Part of my job is doing events, and it was interesting because I'm finally putting on events in the social distancing world with masks and all of this. And it seems that people have really taken to it, right? Like lock, stock, and barrel.
Taken to what? The masks?
Taking the masks, taking the gloves, taking the social distancing.
Taking to throwing them on the ground.
Wow, right? Garbage bags of freaking masks getting picked up now. And yeah, it was kind of an interesting thing because it was really the first events that I've put on where, all of these extra protocols had to be taken into account. And, we're seeing some dips in numbers, but nothing kind of out of the ordinary. But what was fascinating is I was actually talking to somebody, and, it could be because of the province, but, this guy was from Alberta, and he's sitting 6 feet away. He's got his mask on. He's like, you people in Saskatchewan are way too lackadaisy about this.
We have
And it's like,
per capita, we have less infections than Alberta does.
well, per capita and just people. We just have less people like this. Like it's the reality.
It makes sense that we have low infection rates. I mean, our density, like our what is it?
Right.
The square footage per person is one of the lowest in the world.
Right. Exactly.
Well, one of the lowest for places that have cities.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure there's some parts of the Amazon rainforest that are lower than ours, but.
Well, yeah, like even Calgary actually is one of the largest footprinted cities in the world, if not the largest, I think, and yet has
per
a
capita
population.
Yeah.
And yet, a place like, there's cities all over that have much more dense population. So it's interesting that people aren't taking these sorts of thoughts into account. Like,
well, Calgary went pretty like Alberta. Alberta's an interesting thing right now, and has been for quite a while, because politically, for a little while there, they went left and they voted NDP, and then for whatever reason, everybody regretted it. I don't think it was as bad as they say it was, but everybody regretted it. And they kicked out Rachel Notley, and then they went back all blue. But for I don't even know how long now. It's got to be close to a decade, if not more. They've had, I forget his first name. His last name is Nenshi, Mayor Nenshi.
Mayor Nenshi is all I know.
And like that dude is he's pretty, like he's pretty far left as a mayor. And so it's an interesting dynamic. Provincially, they're all blue, but the city of Calgary is very progressive, if you want to call it that. So they've had mandatory mask requirements since, was it like May or late April or something like that? Somebody will correct me on that. Yeah. It's been quite a while.
So isn't it interesting that the masks have become a political point? I find this fascinating, because you have the right and you have the left, and or pardon me, you have the left saying, mask, you have to wear a mask. Then you do have people on the right who are like, you don't need to wear a mask. Da, 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 da. And it's now become a political thing. And to me, it's so strange that whether being left or being right is about masks, because this is the thing, is they've now taken science and they have, and not now, I guess.
Science is politicized,
Science is politicized. Like, is that not the craziest goddamn thing you've ever heard in your entire life? Like,
everything is politicized these days.
Everything is. The idea that a fact, it's like I was going to call him Trudeau. Colbert talks about, truthiness. The idea that facts or a fact can be politicized and truthy is insane. And what's funny is that people can't even admit to a fact being a fact anymore, right? Like it's beyond even like folks can't even accept if something, there's CO2 building up in the mask. Well, this just can't be because my opponent or my opposition could be right, or the mask stop the virus. Well, that can't be because the person who I disagree with. It's
almost like we just disagree to disagree, and
it is.
It's a major reason why we talked about it in the first couple of episodes, and my very first blog post on the webpage was about it. Is nobody's thinking anymore. Everybody thinks with their ideology, which means they let other people do their thinking for them. So if somebody is aligned with them politically, then that's the person who's going to think for them.
Well, just look at what's happening down in the States right now with Joe Biden's VP pick, this Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
You just hear people going, well, Kamala Harris, she's great. She's fantastic. Yeah, well, she also has sent a lot of people to prison. People of color have been sent to prison because of her policies. And, she's prosecuted marijuana users and all this sort of stuff, but people are willing to forego. It was like, I don't remember what podcast it was, but where people were supporting John Bolton. Right?
I don't even know who John Bolton is.
Yeah, but people are talking, John Bolton's a good guy because he was anti-Trump.
Oh,
right?
yeah, Bolton.
Yeah, Bolton,
him now. Yeah.
Right? And I lost my shit because I was like,
You've
How
sworn
can
twice
you?
already, and we're not even out of what did you do this week?
Shit and goddamn are not swears.
Eh.
Goddamn is not a swear. But the point of the matter is that people will literally support a war criminal, because he's now giving them whatever, making them feel good about their position.
Yeah.
So speaking
I'd like to say that this
possible
is
war
something
criminals,
new. I'd like
I
to say
know.
that this is something new, but you got to remember how much the German people loved Hitler.
Right? Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
and obviously not all of them, but I mean, this is part of the human condition. It's got to be, and it's just
But it's
everything
not
that's
just
going on
Hitler. It's
right
any
now.
time. It's any partisan situation.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
it's the Soviet communists. It's the Maoist Chinese. It's the right. It's the same. But anyway, you were saying.
No, you made my
Yeah.
point for me.
Yeah. So it's true. So speaking of possible war criminals, what's up with Mr. Bill Murneau?
Yeah, that's okay. I didn't do anything this week.
Oh shoot! I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. What'd you do this week, Kris?
It's
Speaking of
okay.
war criminals, what'd you do this week, Kris?
Well, I'll tell you what I didn't do. I didn't get out to the range as much as I would have liked. It was balls hot all week. First of all, I know watching our demographics, we've got a couple of listeners that are regularly listening to us in the US. And if you're somewhere around that Mason-Dixon line, if you're looking at the temperatures we had this week and you're thinking wimps, but listen, dude, in a couple of months, it's going to be minus 30, which is minus 30.
Yeah.
Celsius and Fahrenheit, right? Is it 32
40?
or 34?
I thought it was 40. Isn't it 40?
Is it 40? We should look it up.
But it'll still be minus 40 either way.
Minus 32 Celsius to fair. I don't even know how to spell.
Last year, it got down with wind chill to minus 58. Like,
yeah, exactly. You're right.
When
40 is 40. Yeah.
40 is 40. Yeah. So when people are like, oh yeah, well the heat, minus 58 with the wind chill.
So for the people in the United States, that's minus 72.4 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So you know what? If you can't take our winters, then you can't make fun of me complaining about a hot summer. It's because true. It was. Did we break 40 above?
I'm not 100% sure. Maybe with the Humidex.
I think we broke 40 at least once or twice with the Humidex.
Yeah.
We hit a natural. Was it 38?
38 was the one day I know for that for sure.
Something like that. Yeah.
That's
Monday stupid. Yeah. And of course, here's what I don't get: rolling brownouts in the city because we can't handle everybody running their air conditioners like that.
Right. Welcome to Mogadishu. Right.
Well, how does that happen in this province? We have the extremes for all weather. How are we not prepared? How is our power grid not prepared for winter or summer?
But this is an issue that we've been facing and been putting down the road for a long time. I know plenty of people who work for SAS Power, and they've talked about this across the United States and Canada as well, that are like, look, the grid is we're keeping it together with duct tape and chewing gum right now, because they're like something even just slightly bad happens and it can take down the entire system. The grid needed to get replaced 20 years ago. Yeah. And the whole idea was when they set up the grid in the 1950s, that they had figured out exactly how long it was going to take until they could actually repair it. And so they were doing all of these switch outs and these upgrades over time. And then the politicians are like, well, this is costing us way too much money because, we don't want to invest in our society anymore. And so they've been doing these ad hoc repairs for the past, 20, 30 years. And that is one of the scariest things. People talk, even when this pandemic was happening in early days and we didn't know how bad it was or not, how bad it wasn't going to be. And we were talking about this and people are like, well, why is everybody freaking out with the food and the water and this and that? And this has always been my point, is that our power grid sucks. So if you have an illness, say go through the power stations, the staff, not the actual station itself, but go through the staff, and you have people that should be running the power grid are sick and you get the percentages too high, and there's too many people, and there's too many people dying, our entire power grid.
Okay, you have to
shuts
stop.
down.
You're scaring everyone.
Good.
We're all going to be wearing masks at the power grid now.
We need to all be wearing masks.
We
at
need
the power grid
masks.
I'm just saying that our system and our society is on a tightrope on a good day, and we've got 4 or 5 major kind of situations happening right now.
You're pulling a me to this week.
I'm telling you, guys are going to have to. I know I'm talking over you. You guys are going to have to talk me off the ledge. Continue. So, how was your week, Kris?
Well, I'll tell you what else sucks. The Postal Service. I ordered some face coverings because, back in early July, it would have been mid-July. I saw the mandatory mask thing coming, and that's what's so stupid about the mandatory mask thing is nobody cares about all of the studies showing the efficacy of different types of masks. As long as your face is covered, everybody's cool with it. So rather than looking like an escaped mental patient, I ordered some facial coverings that don't look like face masks, like N95 masks. Not that N95 masks are what mental patients are wearing, but just cutting everybody down.
Just cutting everybody down.
Anyway, so I ordered them back in mid-July, and I specifically, because I had some other issues ordering things within Canada with Canada Post. So I specifically wrote on it, do not ship USPS, because they probably suck, and they're going to hand it off to Canada Post, who sucks. Ship it UPS or FedEx or Purolator. I don't care.
Charge me.
Ship it something else. Well, first of all, they charged me $15 to ship a couple of plain ass cloth things in a plastic bag. Okay.
Jesus, yeah.
So that was a little ridiculous. That's $15 US.
Right.
The shipping cost almost as much as 5 face coverings.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a bit of an irritation.
Did you order from that SA or whatever?
I did actually.
Yeah. That's where I get mine from.
SA Fishing.
Yeah.
They're in Boca Raton.
Right. Yeah.
So mid-July I ordered it. They end up shipping it USPS anyway, charging me a stupid amount of money for shipping, and they still ship it with USPS's form that you can't get tracking for.
Lovely.
So I'm contacting them, and they're like, well, you got to contact you. Here's the funny thing is it had contact tracing leading up to when it hit the supply depot in Miami.
Right.
And then after that, there was nothing. So I had this scan July 22nd or something like that, saying that it was shipped from Miami, or that it arrived at the International Sorting Center in Miami on the 22nd, and then nothing after that. So I contacted them like the second week of August, because they said like 12 to 15 day shipping. Yeah. And that's what they're saying during COVID. So I called them, they're like, no, you need to call USPS. I call USPS, they're like, yeah, you didn't pay for tracking on this, so I'm not telling you anything.
Nice.
I was like, cool. So I basically just decided that they were gone and they weren't going to arrive, but they finally arrived this week.
Oh, well, that's good to hear, because I was just checking my tracking number because I just ordered some extras. So I had 5 that I've had for years that I've been wearing for hunting and fishing and just
I got a bright orange one, so I can wear one for hunting.
Right. But I decided to order 5 more because I saw this thing coming down the pipe too. And,
when did you order them?
I ordered mine 5 days ago, and they're in the Miami, Florida International Distribution Center as of the 19th.
You're not going to see them until next September.
I ain't going to see them until next September, exactly. Yeah. So that's pretty funny.
So those arrived. So I got a couple for myself, and I got a couple for Joe. Yeah. Joe's got a handmade one that she just kind of puts on and ties around behind. And all this sort of stuff. But I've got it in case, because there are a couple of places that won't let you in now. There's actually a number of places that won't let you in. Walmart is one. Not that I go to Walmart very often.
Yeah, me too.
But I was forced to wear one when I went to the dentist, which means they had to give me one.
Oh, yeah.
Costco so far isn't forcing people to, but we'll see.
That's coming.
Yeah. I mean, they've been standing there forever.
Yeah, well, and the big thing for me is it's like, fine, I'll wear my fucking mask. But what drives me nuts?
You just swore.
Dang it! I'll wear my freaking mask. That's fine. But the main reason I'm buying more is that so I can put them all over the place.
So you can just
because,
grab one and
well,
moment's
there's
notice?
like walk of shame to go get my friggin' mask every time I have to go somewhere.
Well, they're
It's
small
like,
enough you can fold them up like a pocket square and just put them in
well,
your back pocket.
I know, but I still like in my office and then my car, so I'm putting one everywhere. Everywhere, I just gonna reach out. I'm just gonna be able to grab a mask and put it on.
We're gonna be
Because
wearing masks on
yeah,
the show soon.
yeah,
That's what it's gonna
exactly.
be.
It's
So then
pretty cool.
I started finally rehabbing myself. So I've talked about it a little bit, but a quick recap. I don't think I've really talked about it. I've got degenerative hip arthritis from years of stupid training, in martial arts, and by years I mean decades. So in addition to that, I found out, I guess it was 4 years ago now, that I have an extra lumbar vertebra. So my spine is about almost 4 inches longer than it's supposed to be, which creates torso instability. So the two things combined have really started causing a problem in my sacrum, not really in my low back, but in my sacrum. And that's like the thing between your tailbone and your spine.
Yeah.
So I keep injuring the ligaments all surrounding the sacrum, and I've done it multiple times. I've never really kind of figured out what it was before. This last time it put me down for a week and a half, and so I decided to find out what it was. And yeah, it's like 100% all the symptoms for sprained sacral ligaments.
Right.
So that happened about 2 weeks ago now when we were shooting. We talked about it last week on the show, and I just like maybe for the last 3 days have been able to because I worked out on Monday. I did jujitsu on Monday. So since Monday, but Monday was like pretty touch and go. I did very light rolling, and it was a little bit sore afterwards, and I had to really stretch, and I massaged it when I got home with my percussion massager and all that sort of stuff. So really since Tuesday or Wednesday, I really haven't had much for pain. And starting on Wednesday, I started doing my rehab work again. And, people who know me know people who have seen me full length know that I don't have an ass, and that doesn't help. Plus jujitsu is very
Squats, bro. You just gotta squat.
Yeah, I got to squat more, bro. More lunges.
More lunges.
Yeah. Friends don't let friends skip leg day because it works your ass.
Sure.
So, well, the other thing too is jujitsu is very anterior core heavy. So it works your abdominals, your obliques, your hip flexors, your quads. Like it's quite heavy in all of that exercise, but it's like, unless you are giving people your back all the time and letting them get back mount and stuff, and they're rolling on top of you while you're belly down, there's not a whole lot of posterior core work on it.
Yeah.
Or when you're doing jujitsu. So it's very easy to create imbalances. And I most definitely have one because I've had a strong anterior core for a very long time.
Yeah.
And in proportion to my posterior core or my posterior. So I just started the rehab anyway. And this ties into what we're going to be talking about in our main topic, but it worked pretty well. I was only able to do about a 20-minute heavy bag workout, and then it starts to get a little bit sore. And that's just throwing teeps and leg kicks, like not even body kicks.
Yeah.
And then just kind of footwork and punching. And then I had to, do a bunch of stretching and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm on the road to recovery, and I'm determined this time that this sacral sprain is not going to happen again, because it's such a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be focusing on this rehab work and preventative stuff for quite a while, I think.
That's
probably
awesome.
The rest of my life.
Yep. Right.
So that was basically my week. Didn't get out to shoot as much as I wanted to because it was balls hot. I started to say that, and then we just started talking about how hot it was. And other than that, I'm trying to think of what else I did this week. That's pretty much my week, man.
That's awesome.
It was nice because I got to do jujitsu more than I normally do. So
right, and and the fact that you're coming back into it, that's the key, right? So
yeah, at least I was only out for a week and a half.
Yeah,
because it could have been a lot longer. The time before that I heard it was months.
Yeah,
but I had no idea what it was. I thought I actually hurt my back, so I was doing what the doctors recommend, which is just don't do anything, just lie down.
Yeah,
And it lasted
exactly.
for months. This
Yeah,
time I was using my percussion massager like every day. I'm stretching my
yeah,
hip flexors and my quads, and I'm
yeah,
stretching my QLs because the QLs are like muscles on either side of your
yeah.
really deep into your core, and they attach to the bottom of your rib cage, and then they attach to the top of your hip bones. So when they get tight and sore, I keep going, when they get tight and sore, they start to do this, and that
Yeah.
sandwiches everything down, and that just makes the sacral sprain even worse. So stretching those quite a lot helped. But I was working every day, even the days I could barely walk. I was
Hmm.
basically lying in bed doing as much of a QL stretch as I could. And
Yeah.
it was only a week and a half this time. So at least I
Yeah.
know how to rehab it now.
For sure. Awesome. Well, let's kick into the world news, and then we'll talk more about our stretching and training at
And
at
how to be
40.
old and train. Yeah.
Old and train.
Well, maybe if I share my screen instead of just
There
going
you
over
go.
to the screen.
That'll help.
Yeah. So our first bit of news. Now, some other things have kind of gone on with this since this started, or since I quote. Geez, just lost my brain for a moment. Since
Words
I
are hard,
put
MK.
this article up,
Yeah.
things have progressed further in it. But Bill Morneau, the Minister of Finance, has now resigned over the WE scandal. If you don't know about the WE scandal, well, why didn't you listen to our last episode? Because it's exactly what we talked about. But he has now resigned, so he's been thrown under the bus. He's been replaced by Chrystia Freeland, who is the
Deputy Minister.
Deputy Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And we're in a very interesting situation here. I was talking with Dr. Zorba just today, actually,
Yeah.
and he mentioned this to me, and he said, like, this is really interesting. Because I asked him, I said, why do you think he chose Freeland? Because, like, you look at her background, like Bill Morneau's background is in numbers. Like, he knows numbers, he knows business, he knows accounting, right? Chrystia Freeland's background, she was a journalist before she became a politician.
That's why she's a
She
spin
doesn't
doctor.
What's that?
She's a spin doctor.
She's a spin doctor, exactly.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes to show you what's going on here. So, yeah, and that, what Dr. Zorba said was that what's his other choice?
Yeah.
His talent pool is so shallow.
Yeah.
In the House that he can't even make a cabinet. The talent pool that he had, he started torpedoing his talent pool back in, what was it, 2016 or 17?
Yeah, it's 2016, 17. Yeah, I'd say I actually think 2017 if my memory serves.
2017. Yeah. So he torpedoed Jody Wilson-Raybould, and then Jane Philpott after her, and then there was another one.
I don't recall.
I should have written them all down because I can't remember. Yeah. But with Bill Morneau, now this makes like 3 or 4 ministers. Interestingly, Bardish Chagger is still on, and that's the one who Bill Morneau tried to throw under the bus.
Yeah.
So he ended up resigning. She apparently is still an MP and a junior minister. Oh, that was the other one. Stéphane Dion was advising Trudeau.
Yeah.
And Dion was like, no, I don't want you to, Trudeau was like, no, I don't want you telling me what to do. So he kind of got rid of him.
Yeah.
But anyways, the interesting part here is that the country is now being run by a journalist and a former teacher.
Awesome.
And all the people who had a business background have nothing to do with the money now.
And
at this point, I'm not sure that it matters. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and this is, and I was actually going to bring this up, like Dr. Jason Zorba said to us was, we don't really realize how few people there are kind of running the show in his cabinet. Yeah. And this is scary. So as soon as I saw that it was Freeland, I was like, of course, they should call her the minister of everything, because that's basically what she is.
Yeah. I was talking to Jason about that today too. I said, like, when was the last time that the deputy prime minister was also a minister, like a senior minister in cabinet? And he says, you have to go all the way back to the 1950s. And I can't remember who the prime minister was, he says, and I can't remember who the deputy PM was that he said, but it was basically like a 2-person cabinet. It was the PM and the deputy PM, and they called him the minister of everything back in the 50s. But
That's crazy.
apparently the difference was the prime minister back then and the deputy prime minister were just exceedingly talented people. It wasn't because he torpedoed every other person and threw everyone else under the bus and then had nobody left to fill a cabinet out with. It was that they wanted it that way. They did it by design.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's 70 years ago, man. Like, that's a long time ago for a
Right?
country that's only been around since 1867. That's getting pretty close to half of the
exactly.
half of this entire country's history
Yeah.
that you have to go back before that's happened.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So what's up with Bill Blair?
Yeah, well, I mean, the hits just keep on coming here. And first of all, I think we need to point out real quick that I am, I've been accused of this a few times lately. I keep getting called like alt-right or super conservative and all this kind of stuff. And we mentioned it in the first episode, like, as soon as this is part of the ideology problem, as soon as you say anything that can be associated with the right, you're automatically a right-wing extremist.
Well, this is what we were even talking about earlier, right? Is like, now you can't agree with anything. Like, I find that like I think Trump is a piece of garbage, but I fundamentally agree with his policy around North Korea. Why can't I agree with that?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and the irony of it is, when I'm talking to people on the right side of the spectrum, as soon as I say something like, I believe in pro-choice, or I believe in equality of opportunity, because they don't know what equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome means.
Yeah.
Then, all of a sudden the right wing says, "Oh, you're a tree hugging hippie, you libtard," and all this sort of stuff.
And like I say, even look at some of my positions. I believe in a UBI, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And now I'm up there with the communists. Like,
it all just depends on what the group that you're in at that particular moment. If you're in a right-wing group, you have to agree with everything right-wing. Otherwise, you're a leftist libtard. And if you hang out with a bunch of tree-hugging hippies and you say anything about capitalism or about I don't believe in a free market, but how about even just actually discussing equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome with them, and you're like an alt-right fascist,
Yeah, exactly.
It's ridiculousness. Anyway, the point of me mentioning that is, I am not a conservative. I typically do not agree with conservatives. I also typically don't agree with liberals. I also typically don't agree with NDP. I am what I am, and I'm somewhere in the center and maybe slightly right. Quite frankly, except for banning guns, I'm right around where Jean Chrétien was in the 90s.
Pretty much,
he was a liberal.
Yeah, I agree.
With the exception of firearms. And Chrétien was like center right. Like, there's not much argument for that.
Yeah.
The reason that we keep talking about this government is because it really is a dumpster on fire rolling down a flooded river.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's so much going on, and there's so much legitimate, objective corruption and tomfoolery and asshattery going on here. And it's all at a time when everything else is amplified. Everything that the government is doing matters right now.
Yeah.
And with all of this crap coming out, and most of this crap happened a long time ago. Yeah, it's all coming out now, but we're also reaping the whirlwind with the permissiveness that we've had with our current government for the last 5 years now.
Absolutely.
So I just want to be clear that I'm not an ideologue. I'm not ragging on this government or mentioning bad things about this government because I'm an ideologue. And quite frankly, if they would do something right, I will mention that they did something right.
Well, and this is what we even talked about during the WE scandal. I fundamentally supported the program that they were trying to put out for people. It was the right program. It's what people needed. Like the volunteer program. It's what we actually needed in this country. I support that.
Yeah.
Go Trudeau. Woohoo, thumbs up. But then you're corrupt. SOB that had to go in and had to screw it up. So,
and I would very easily give them the props.
And if it's conservative, if it was NDP, I don't care who put the program out there. I'd support the program, and I would call out the corruption. I don't care who you are.
And I would very much like to be able to give them props for allowing the provinces the leeway that they have had to be able to handle the pandemic, because that is the purview of the provinces. And I'd like to say, well, he believes in the system. He believes in the provincial system and all that. I can't say he believes in the parliamentary system, but I could say at least he believes in the provincial system, except for the fact that he tried to overreach with the federal government and allow municipalities to pass laws to ban handguns, which is completely outside the purview of the federal government. That's provincial territory. And provinces like ours in Saskatchewan actually had to take the time, they had to waste time passing legislation to bar municipalities from doing what the federal government was overreaching and telling them to do. So just do something right. Yeah. And exactly. I will say you're doing something right. Yep. Anyway, back to the news here. So Bill Blair was the chief of police for Toronto back in 2010 when the G20 summit was held. You guys may remember this was when they were kettling people. They were just scooping actual peaceful protesters up off the streets, and the Toronto...
they were carding people. They were literally, we want to see your papers to people. Like freaking Gestapo.
And even if they did show them their papers, they took them and arrested them, didn't charge them, and just let them out later. Like, and this is 100% Gestapo stuff, and like without hyperbole, except that they didn't kill anyone. So I suppose it is still hyperbole, but
well, and even to the point where if you came, so they had like basically a no protest zone. If you came, they had a no protest zone, and then they actually had another zone that no one knew about that was considered a security zone. Yeah. To the no protest zone. So even if you were in this certain range, you still got picked up.
Even if you weren't in the no protest zone.
Even if you were in the no protest zone.
Well, that's called moving the goalpost.
It's exactly what it is.
Anyway, the point here being that Bill Blair was the chief of police for Toronto when this happened. He was the one making the calls. And in fact, so there's been a big class action lawsuit that's literally been going on for 10 years against all of these arrests. It was just settled for $16.5 million. I think the average person will get between $5,000 and $24,700, depending on their experiences. And what's really interesting about this is that there was a lawsuit against a superintendent, and I don't think that the superintendent on the scene lost his job and lost the lawsuit against him as well, and he's had to resign. And what's really interesting about that, it's not on this news article, but what's really interesting about that is the guy who was the boots on the ground has all of these repercussions for this and what he did. But it's very well documented. It came out in these lawsuits that he was acting under the direct pressure and orders of the chief of police, Bill Blair. So once again, like, okay, this happened before he was in the current government's cabinet, but it goes to these guys' mentality, right? The people who are currently running our government. Once again, the guy who actually made the decisions is the guy who isn't getting, he just throws a subordinate under the bus and he gets away scot-free. He's not in these lawsuits. The lawsuits against him were dropped, especially because 5 years later, he became he was a member of parliament before 2015.
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah.
So very shortly after this, he resigned as chief of police and went into politics. Mm-hmm. And he's been a sitting member of parliament really since then. So I don't know. So maybe here's the left wing thing. This is where all the right wing guys are calling us, libtards right now, because this is absolutely despicable. Sort of stuff for Canada. Like, talk about a black eye for Canada.
Right.
And I'm glad that these people are going to be getting a $16.5 million payout, but like the fact that happened in this country
should have never happened.
The guy responsible
in our country.
Absolutely. Yeah. But the fact that the guy who's responsible for it is getting away with it is
well, this is the sort of stuff that we even talked about on one of our other podcasts about Occupy and because a lot of this stems from that time. Mm-hmm. And around police and all of this. These are issues that we've been tackling for years. So what is super irritating with I'm seeing now is this left-right thing is, well, you either support the police so you're right wing, or you're against the police and you're left wing, right?
Yeah.
And this is not how any of this stuff is. Anyway, we could beat this dead horse, but let's.
But when you're an ideologue, it's unfathomable to understand how you can support
it.
both Black Lives Matter and the police forces at the same time.
Same time, I know, right? Tell us about this coronavirus being coronavirus.
Is this mine?
I believe it is, isn't it?
No, I think this one's yours, isn't it?
Oh, it is mine. I'm sorry. Yeah, so this is me. So coronavirus is being is acting like a coronavirus. So basically, what's happened is
we're just going to pretend that COVID, SARS-CoV-2 or CoV-2 was the first coronavirus and only up until this point.
Right. So sorry, I do need to bring this up because I was not prepared for this one.
You can read it off my screen.
Yeah. So basically, what they've done is they're finding that there is a mutation in the coronavirus that's causing it to be
SARS-CoV-2.
So, the novel coronavirus.
Yeah.
And basically what they found is that it's actually killing fewer people. And the rates have dropped. So there was a mutation that
sounds
hit
engineered,
Europe.
Doesn't it?
It does somewhat, but basically
hat.
Check out Brett Weinstein where he talks about how he thinks it escaped from Wuhan. Anyway, but so there was a mutation that we saw the mutation happen in Europe and in North America. They actually talked about this back 4 or 5 months ago, and this one is actually a lot less deadly. And what most viruses end up doing, and this is what the study kind of is talking about, is that basically viruses will change to survive, right? So just like the flu, just like other coronaviruses, what's happened is that these viruses have hit the population. They're gonna hit, and they're gonna hit hard. Then they're gonna mutate so that they can survive, because viruses want to be able to survive as long as possible. There's a reason that a virus
Life will find a way.
Life finds a way. Well, it's the whole rabies, right? Rabies has a very high mortality rate, but it's very hard to pass along through a population.
Right.
So it burns itself out. Ebola has got the same issue, right?
Yeah.
Coronavirus, killing people is going down. So basically what this study was showing is that this mutation is now the primary coronavirus or novel coronavirus that we're seeing, and that the death rate is just going to continue to drop. So chill out with the masks.
Well, that's really interesting. First of all, that this isn't really being picked up by a lot of mainstream news. And number two, interesting in general.
Yeah, and I only found it. It's Reuters that's reporting, and I'm finding that is an interesting kind of note with some of this stuff. Is there's stuff coming out about coronavirus all the time, and you're not seeing it on the CNNs and the MSNBCs and of the world. You're seeing it, through the Reuters, AP, because they're the ones who are actually reporting this stuff. And speaking of not reporting on things, this one is, I for one welcome Big Brother. Big Brother is love. For those of you who don't know, that's from 1984.
I'm behind here.
Are you? Sorry.
There now.
So for those of you who don't know what that is, that's from 1984. And
sorry, hold on a sec.
Read the book.
Can we just look at this advertisement for a moment?
Which one? Oh,
Trump 2 acquitted. Own the moment. So I'm going to try to read the fine print here. The greatest president coming November 2020.
Oh, that's too funny.
So for those who don't know, that's Rocky with Trump's face. All right, carry on.
So we're not entirely sure how left or how right leaning this newspaper is, but running the ads like that might indicate. So it's from the Washington Free Beacon, and they're not wrong about the information that they are passing along. So the University of California has actually will be implementing a system, basically requiring students to have a mobile app put on their phone so that they could track them at all times. So even when they're not on campus or when they're not in class, they'll be able to track them. And I wanted to read this one section here. Sorry, let me just find it here. So the school is working to create a COVID.
Which paragraph is this?
The second paragraph.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so the school is working to create a COVID bubble on campus and asking students to stay within the school's 4.5-mile perimeter for the entire semester. If a student leaves campus, the app will notify the administration and the student could be temporarily suspended.
That sounds
So
like jail.
That sounds like jail, right? That is literally jail. So you're now telling students that who are supposed to be adults that they can't manage.
Yeah, but I mean,
own
is the
coming
average
and going.
college kid an adult at this
Well,
point
like
in
I've always
life?
said, we can send people to, we can send 18-year-olds to war, but we can't allow them to, have
Do
an
anything
alcoholic
else.
beverage or anything else, right?
Yeah.
So it's okay. Here's a gun, go kill that dude, but everything else is up for grabs. So it's just lending itself to, and this is so well known, if you give governments or people in power an inch, they'll take it, and you're never getting it back. Do you think 5 years from now that this school is going to say, yeah, we don't need this app anymore? No,
of course
this
not.
app is going to stay, and they're going to keep all these different reasons for why they need it, right? For safety reasons and on and on and on, and people are just going to accept it.
Did you know that Meg Ryan is apparently working a 9 to 5 now?
Wow, surprise.
Man, news agencies are just. Meg Ryan was a great actress.
Yeah, she was.
He's never been married, but now we know why. Are they trying to insinuate that what's his name?
No. If they were talking, they would be insinuating. You're inferring.
Okay, they're inferring. I don't think that's how it works.
Yeah.
But anyway, are they okay, which one are they trying to infer is gay here?
I think both.
Well, no, because Robbins was married. He was married to
well, maybe
trying to remember her name, but why is his name escaping me right now?
Oh, Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah,
they're trying to insinuate that Morgan Freeman. This is most definitely a right-wing paper. I mean, look at this update. Joe Biden still doesn't know how many grandchildren he has. Is that Kim Kardashian interviewing Joe Biden?
No, that's Cardi B from this new video that everybody's losing their mind over called WAP or WAP.
What's a Cardi B?
A Cardi B is a singer person.
Why does she look like Kim Kardashian?
Old, because she doesn't look anything like Kim Kardashian. Just because
look, she's got plastic hair. Yeah. She's got fake
breastises.
Yeah, that's all I see.
That's fair. I know. I actually had the unfortunate pleasure of having to watch this video literally an hour ago with my wife. She's like, have you seen this thing that people are losing their mind about?
This Cardi B video?
Watch this Cardi B video. It is not appropriate for us to play it on our channel. Plus, it would get
what is it? Just sexually suggestive or what?
It's sexually suggestive. Well, it's funny because people are losing their mind over it, and I'm like, I literally see nothing wrong. So on the, we've got the left and the right. So on the left side, you've got a bunch of people freaking out saying, it's exploitative of women, and they're internalizing misogyny, and all of these sorts of things about how bad it is. And then on the other side, you have the right wingers going, it's teaching our kids immorality, and they're talking about bad stuff. And the funniest part about this is that the style of rap that they're doing or the style of music they're doing is actually a style of rap. It's actually a well-known style of rap. Well, well-known in the rap community. Like this, it's super dirty. It talks about all sorts of positions and stuff and writing this and on and on and on.
I'd really like to have some banter with you about this, but I'm having so much trouble caring.
That's totally fair.
I just don't care.
But the point of the matter is that this video is a video that exists, and people need to calm the hell down about it.
Okay.
So speaking of things that exist,
things that exist.
So this is a really great story, and it's very important for people to be following along. So this is from Axios, and they're very a legitimate poll taker. So a lot of their stuff is very, very on point. So basically they're saying here, the new data, I'm going to just read here what's happening. The new data from the Bank of Russia shows the country now receives more euros than dollars for its exports to China, with the share of goods purchased in the euros rising from 0.3% at the start of 2004, it was just 1.3 at the second quarter of 2008, to nearly 51% at the end of Q1. So what people may not know is that the USD, the US dollar, is is the reserve currency of the world. So in a nutshell, if you basically want to buy, let's say you're Russia and you want to buy goods from China, you don't exchange Russian dollars for Chinese dollars. You take your Russian dollars, you go get American dollars, you exchange that, and you give the Chinese American dollars, and then they sell you the goods. This is called the reserve currency, and this is how it works throughout all of the countries. So basically, all countries buy and sell through only using US dollars. So that way you have one standard.
So this has really been in the last 2 years, because this is 2018,
That's
2019,
right.
and 2020. So
And
what
so-
happened in the first quarter of 2018
where it started to go up? Well, so what's been happening is the United States has been printing more USD, more dollars, right? And so right at the first quarter of 2018 was QE4, it's called, or quantitative easing is what the Federal Reserve has been calling it. And the United States since 2008, 2010 have been injecting money into the money supply. They've been printing more money. They don't actually print money, but they've been creating more and more money, giving out more and more cash for people to take out loans, and this is what's been driving the economy for basically the past decade. So the fact that the Russians are not basically leaving, but the fact that they're actually using euros to buy Chinese goods, that means that the Chinese are wanting those euros. This is devastating for the United States and as the standard reserve currency. And I genuinely think that what we're actually seeing with the pandemic and the economy and all this, we're not actually seeing, even from the case of the pandemic, what we're seeing is the actual fall of the American dollar from being the reserve currency. So before
in Russia?
I think around the world. I think we're seeing it. Yeah, but Russia, China, and Brazil, that makes up 90% of the economy around the world. So essentially, if the US dollar collapses as the world reserve currency, we're going to see a complete shattering of the world economy.
You know what, though? This kind of looks like it could just be political too. Like 2018 is also around the time that the Chinese tensions started.
5% I would say is political. 51% is a sea change. The central banks around the world see the demise of the USD. This is my opinion. See the demise of the USD, and they are preparing for it. Look at the price of gold right now. Anyway,
but the price of gold is up because and is skyrocketing because the economy is tanking. That's happened every single time there's been a recession or a depression ever. I don't think it necessarily has anything to do with the U.S. economy. It has to do with the global economy.
Well, the global economy, but the global economy is the U.S. economy. Like that's how it's all built out right now with them being the reserve currency. So we all almost died. This is the next one.
Well, you're going to have to give me a minute. You're trying to what happened to your long drawn out segues?
Right. Well, you see that since we're all going to die because there's going to be no food or money available, an asteroid.
I only need one of the two.
That's fair.
You already talked about this.
This is a different one. It's just happened.
But a couple of months or a couple of episodes ago, you mentioned that this was supposed to be happening.
No, this one. Okay, so that one's coming later. So this is the reason I put this one up. Is this one came? It
was only 1,800 miles
from us. Yeah.
How did it not get caught in our orbit?
Yeah. Well, that was just it. That's the craziest thing. Is that this thing?
You know what though? This thing's only the size of a car.
Yeah. Like it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, we almost all died, but not really.
That's probably why it went unnoticed.
They completely missed it. Our tracking systems completely missed it. And they were like,
that's probably because it's so small.
Well, but they should be able to.
It's the submarine. It's a galactic submarine.
But they
without torpedoes.
Right. Well, they should technically be able to track this thing. And they didn't. And it was just interesting. So
how many other objects are they tracking though?
Oh, millions, all sorts.
Yeah.
Basically, they track anything from the size of a suitcase and up.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. So
they missed this one.
They missed this one.
It must have come from the dark side of the moon or something.
Well, and it is a city killer. So, we also have to make sure that everybody understands.
What's a city killer?
The asteroid that they missed is a city killer.
Just the size of a car is a city killer?
The asteroid that came through Chilibinks, whatever it was called, there in 2016.
Okay.
The one that hit Russia, that hit the Russian city, that shattered all the windows and blew up.
Yeah, yeah.
It was, I think, maybe a ton, maybe. So
maybe it did actually hit, and they just said that it was a whole bunch of nitrate, ammonium nitrate in Beirut.
or it actually did hit, and that's what caused all the fires in California.
Tinfoil hat.
So
Well, this one was
here,
actually cool. This is interesting. I wish it would have hit us.
yeah, it would have been kind of,
I mean, that would have been like, that would have trumped the murder hornets, no problem.
It would have been very fitting for 2020, but
It doesn't have to hit a landmass. Like I don't need anybody to die.
Devastation.
That would have been pretty. Could you imagine the awesome video of that landing somewhere in the ocean?
Yeah, just exploding. Yeah, it would have been cool.
That'd be the tits. Well, here's the other thing too. If it did go into our atmosphere, how big would it, like something that big? What are the odds that that's gonna not break up into a whole bunch of little pieces?
The biggest thing is that they say that it's entry trajectory, right? Like the angle of entry. They say that's the big one, right? And that's like in Chilibinks. The reason
the steeper
how it comes in. Yeah.
The shallower the entry, the more it'll break up because it's
right. And then
stays in
obviously size,
the atmosphere longer.
And size matters in this case as well, because the bigger it is, it can burn right through and still smash and kill us all. Speaking of killing us all, finally we can get freaking Terminator drones.
This is bullshit. This is just like those 22, those plastic 22 targets that are self-healing. They just put like a liquid polymer inside of them that when it's exposed to air, it hardens. So it just kind of leaks out a little bit. And then after a little while, there's no more polymer and then it's not self-healing anymore.
Yeah, I know. It was quite funny because they were talking about this, and I'm like, this is not actually what they're saying it is.
Of course, this is the U.S. Army too. Like,
yeah,
some of the things the U.S. Army does is just weird. I follow a channel called Task and Purpose on YouTube, and it's a former Army guy, and he basically just talks about all the things that the Army is doing, and he lately he's been going on because the Army's got multiple bids out. They're looking to replace their squad light machine gun. They're looking to replace their assault rifles.
Right.
They're looking to replace a couple of light vehicles. They're looking to replace a mounted grenade launcher and a couple of other things. They're looking to replace their shoulder-fired rockets and all this kind of stuff. So I keep watching them, and it's like, man, some of the requirements they have are just, and so some of the projects they engage in are just nutty, absolutely nutty.
You know, the big thing with any sort of military research or any of the stuff that DARPA does or any of these, Boston Dynamics, they're going to try as much crap as they can because you never know, you might be able to get a weapon out of it.
And hey, it's America. They got the funding for it.
Exactly. So, basically in a nutshell, it's this material that is basically what Kris...
Sorry. How are they pulling inspiration from Terminator 2 if it's made of frickin' polymer?
Right, I know. Well,
the T-1000 was liquid metal.
It was liquid metal. Well, and that was just it, is that this actually isn't really the Terminator. But
look at all these frickin' pop-ups. I can't even get rid of them.
I know. It's brutal. But yeah, we can move on from this. But basically, it's just it was a new material. They've just found a way of covering drones in it, and we've seen it already on Abrams. We've seen it on a variety of different platforms.
This looks like exactly, yeah. This isn't even new technology. This stuff has been in development for, man. They're just pushing the Terminator angle here. Hey,
I know, it's fantastic.
Yeah, this stuff has been around for a long time.
I, for one, can't wait for the Terminators. So
I'm more of a cyborg guy.
Yeah, that's fair. I would totally do like the cybernetic implants and stuff. I would be down.
Not that I want to be Jean-Claude Van Damme, but
no, I would have to say, like, if they're like, hey, yeah, do you want this, like these like super robot eyes and like full metal torso and stuff, I'd take it.
Oh no, your next one is hilarious. Okay, we got to move on to this.
Yes,
considering what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, so it's funny. So Gator, there seems to be a COVID in my soup.
Why are they called Gators?
I don't know.
This is the first time I've even heard this.
Yeah.
Who is Hetty Phillips, and why is she calling them Gators?
Everybody calls them neck
gators.
Is this a thing?
Do they?
Apparently they're called neck gators. Yeah, I don't know why they're called neck gators.
I don't want them called that.
So we talked about this last week about the neck gaiters being worse than no mask at all.
Yeah, we did.
And then
a couple weeks ago.
It was a couple weeks ago. And then, so a couple of things that happened. So
hang on. In fairness, the studies did not look at neck gaiters. The studies simply looked at cloth fabric masks.
Well, so neck gaiters was one of them. So let me talk about, because this is what this article is really kind of hammering home, and they're explaining that study. So first of all, the study had 4 people in it. 4. All right.
That's not a study. That's not a study. That's an informal poll at a cocktail party.
Right. And what the study was actually doing wasn't talking about, was not trying to figure out the neck gaiter versus the COVID or versus an N95 versus any of this. What they were actually studying was a way of testing masks, not that they were testing masks.
Right.
And so what happened was they basically started off with, they had a box and they had a light come through, and then they had somebody put on a mask and speak through, and they literally were using a cell phone camera. Like this is how sophisticated this was. And the idea was that you would speak, then the cell phone camera would take a picture watching the spittle come through as they were flashing this light on it. And it was this setup that they were actually talking about.
Were they actually trying to spit through their mask, or were they just
talking? So what they were saying was they would say, "Stay safe, everyone," 5 times or something like that through the masks.
And then did they speak that moistly?
Apparently. And so they were doing this.
Do they all have lisps? Stay safe, everybody.
Stay safe. And they were literally speaking through into this box, and it was registering, right? And so they gave N95s.
You carry on. I just drank my beer down the wrong tube.
So then what they would do is they had the mask, or they set it at 100% with no mask. So basically they said no mask is 100%. They could see the spittle. Then they went through and they did a bunch of masks, and they gave everything a different rank. And the N95s had 0.1% was the lowest. For some reason, the neck gaiters came in at 110%. And that
doesn't seem likely at all.
Right. And they don't know why. And more importantly, this wasn't a goddamn study about the face coverings. It was a study about the setup. And they were like, this is interesting.
How do you get 110%? How do you end up with more spittle than you're producing?
That's what they couldn't figure out. And they put it in the study, and they said, we don't know why this happened. So here's the information. Others go out there and try it, and let's figure this out. But no, what happened is the news media turned around and said that neck gaiters are worse than no mask at all, because that was how they were able to create the clickbait. And this again goes to people not actually reading the study and not going through the proper channels of fully grasping and understanding it. So that's adorable. It's basically why I wanted to bring this back up. So neck gaiters probably work just as good as any other fabric. We don't know. That's the answer. So if somebody's giving you a hard time about wearing a neck gaiter and not a frickin' cloth mask, tell them to cram it with walnuts, ugly.
Even without this study, I would have told them to cram it with walnuts, ugly.
Yeah, that's totally
Are you telling them to? Never mind. Let's move on.
There's cramming and there's walnuts. That's all.
That's all we need to know.
So this one I just wanted to bring up real quick, just to touch on it. So, and this is a province specific. So for those of you who don't live in Saskatchewan, just try to follow along. So basically we have a community, we have communities here. We talked about them before, called the Hutterites. Basically think of them like Amish, but they're allowed cell phones.
So, first of all, like if I were looking at this article,
yes,
I would read that and I would move on. I am so sick and tired of nameless experts telling us what to do.
It's like, who? What are they telling us?
Right? Who are the experts? And why are these experts more credible than the other experts?
I know.
Anyway, keep going.
So we have Hutterites here. They basically think like Amish, but they're like cell phones and cars. Is kind of the easiest way to put it. I'm sure there's a lot more distinction, and I apologize.
There's a lot of differences.
And I
apologize even remotely like the Amish.
And I apologize to the Amish, but you're not on the internet anyway, so You
So
can't
here's
hear
what the
me.
Hutterites actually are.
Yeah.
they're Germanic descendant groups of people who are
They were religiously oppressed.
sure they were,
Yeah.
but you mean that's why they ended
They're
up
here.
settling in North America?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm not going to pretend I'm a Hutterite expert because I'm not. But really, they settled in their own sort of colonies. They keep to themselves. They are fundamentally religious, and they have their own culture within Canada.
Yeah. So
And
Amish that drive
they
cars and have cell phones.
well, I suppose, but I mean, if you talk to, it's like calling Germans Austrians, It's like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, but they speak the same language and they sound the same. But if you call a German an Austrian, he'll punch you in the face, and if you call an Austrian or German, he'll light your face on fire
Yeah.
because they're
But
not really the same thing.
I'm pretty sure that neither Amish or Hutterites can do that. So you can say whatever the hell you want. So anyway, the big thing is
They'll run
and
you
we've
over
talked
with their big ass vans.
It's true. So the big thing is that the numbers here in Saskatchewan have been very low to begin with.
Less than 1,600
1,500
confirmed cases since ever.
Yeah, 1,590 cases. And of that, they were saying it was about 390 were in the Hutterite communities. Now, new data is coming out saying that it was 596. So basically a full third or a little over a third of all of our cases were happening in an insular community. And I believe Kris actually
several
said
insular communities.
several insular communities, but communities that don't have a lot of interaction with the general public. They do have some. They come to
But within their
the
culture, everything they do is communal.
So we knew it was going to pass around, and it's funny because again we're making decisions, policy decisions, like even this 390 number. Like it was fascinating because I didn't know it was that high in the Hutterite communities, right? Because at 390 or 400 cases, they're like, well, it was actually 500, but even at 400 cases. Okay, so realistically, we've had 1,000 cases in the general population in the province, right? Because
right.
The Hutterites, while they do interact with the general population, it's nowhere near the way they do internally, right? So again, we're making people can't go to school, but there was 1,000 cases in the entire province.
And you want to know what's interesting about that is if nearly 600 of the nearly 1,600 cases in the province are attributed to Hutterite colonies, I'm just really quickly going to look up, because there's another group that is responsible for, well, not responsible, but who have, because I don't, who cares? So 346 cases as of today have been in the Northwestern reserves, the majority of which are one small reserve of La Loche. So if we've got nearly 600, so a third of our cases have been on isolated Hutterite colonies, a sixth, more than a sixth of our cases have been on an isolated reserve. What are we worried about?
Right. We have to protect the vulnerable. I do not disagree with that. But
but that's not. Exactly. We're not talking
to shut down our entire economy for 800 cases
100%.
in the entire province is ludicrous.
There's
right? Like it's
what is here's some food for thought here. La Loche has a population of approximately 2,800 people.
Right.
That is what, about 10, not even 10% of Saskatoon's population, right?
Yeah, no, not quite.
Not quite 10% of so let's just say 10% of Saskatoon's population. They have had a grand total of 346 cases. And not just Saskatoon, but Saskatoon and surrounding area for almost 100-kilometer radius around Saskatoon has only had 251 cases.
And we're talking about mandatory masks, and kids can't go back to school where there's no
Yeah.
place that they get to eat.
In a 100
Where-
kilometer radius around Saskatoon, you're probably looking at, I'm just guessing here, but probably somewhere around 500,000 people, which means that, La Loche's population is somewhere around, I don't know, 6 or so % of Saskatoon's population. And we have had 100 cases, confirmed cases less.
Yeah. And people are literally freaking out. They're not leaving their houses. They're
Let's just put it this way, guys, settle down and just live your life, because you know what? If you walk out into the street tomorrow and get hit by a car, you're really going to regret the last 6 months of your life.
Guaranteed, and we're not going to do the math right now, but maybe we'll do it for next episode, where guaranteed your likelihood of dying from a whole bunch of other things is higher than dying from COVID at this point.
Dude, there have been more murders in this city than COVID deaths. And by the way, a lot of the COVID deaths being attributed to Saskatoon are people who are dying in the Saskatoon hospital. They weren't infected in Saskatoon.
Yeah, they had more COVID. Murders.
Yeah, there have been, but not from Saskatoon.
Oh yeah, they've been brought in. Yeah,
several, for example, several people who died in Saskatoon hospital were from the Loche.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's still been more murders than COVID deaths. There have been, the stats aren't out yet, but the estimates that I've been reading, because nobody can find the actual stats, that there have been way more suicides than COVID deaths in this city. There have been more overdoses in this entire province. This is the highest the highest year ever for overdose deaths in this entire province. And at current, now some of it's not confirmed, so some of it is estimated, but at current estimates, what is this going to be? 9 times more people have overdosed this year than have died from COVID.
Yeah.
That is staggering. And why do you think more people are, by the way, so 2018 was the next highest year for overdoses. There were 171 confirmed overdose deaths in the province of Saskatchewan in 2018. Because the numbers aren't finalized yet, again, some of this is an estimate, but as of the beginning of August, they were at 179 for the province. So any suicide that happens in August, September, October, November, and December for the next 5 months are going to be above and beyond the number of suicides that have ever happened in 1 year in this province. And do you think that might have something to do with the coronavirus, all the depression, that maybe drug use is going up, and because drug use is going up, more people are overdosing?
Yeah, this is because the economy
at this point, you cannot convince me. You're really going to have to pull some sort of magical evidence out of your hat to be able to refute my claim that the cure for coronavirus inside this province is worse than the disease. Because just in overdose deaths, it is potentially responsible for 9 times more deaths.
Yeah.
Now, that's not okay. You know what? That's not entirely true, because 171 people died without coronavirus, or overdosed without coronavirus. But we've got 5 more months to go, man.
Yeah. Well, and this is something I think that people don't take the time to understand the numbers. They don't take the time to really think about what it is that we're doing. The impact that when the economy crashes, which it is crashed or is crashing,
it's crashed.
What people don't understand is that impact has long-lasting effects. We see rates increasing with suicide, alcoholism, and lower education rates. We see lower graduation rates. We see a deterioration in our social structure.
And even if we don't see lower graduation rates from what's going on right now, most of the kids in the school system are not going to catch up, even from what they missed from March until June. Let alone what they're going to miss with all the tomfoolery that's going on with the back to school stuff right now.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like there are people are so laser focused on one consequence that they are completely ignoring all of the other consequences that are just as bad, if not worse. It's
I would argue even worse in most cases. Well, considering and not
well,
to,
in terms
not
of
to,
deaths, it's certainly worse.
right? Well, that's just it. It's like people who are dying from coronavirus are in their 80s and 90s. And again,
The
all
last
death is
4 people
tragic.
that died in this province. So the fifth last, I think it was the fifth last person that died was in their 20s. And a big deal was made about that, except that the person had such severe pre-existing asthma that a strong wind was a problem for them. Like just, serious
And we
pre-existing.
need to protect those people for sure. But we can't crash our
of course.
economy.
Yeah,
right?
100%. But the last 4 have been over the age of 70. 3 of the last 4 have been over the age of 80, and 1 of the last 4 have been over the age of 90. And you know what? Death is always sad.
Yeah.
Death is also a part of life.
It is, yeah.
And then, you know what? I'm saying this as somebody whose dad died just less than 2 years ago, extremely young and extremely unexpectedly. It is a part of life. If you are going to stop living because you are afraid of dying, then get the fuck out of my way, because I'm not willing to do that. I watched my dad die young, and I'm going to live my life. Oops.
Oh.
I finally said what I'm thinking. That's going to be a problem.
Oh, well. That's what
we should move on.
We really
at this point should really move on. Okay. Did we do this one? We did this one.
Well, the how to write one?
No, it's Groundhog Day over here.
You're on 62-year-old.
Oh man. Yeah, okay. So this is
a fantastic video.
So we're just gonna watch the video here. So I'll break it down for everybody, and then we'll watch the video. But first, I have to make sure that I'm going to share my computer sound. So what this is this 62-year-old man who reportedly practices Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, this is from BJG.com, which is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu site. You can probably tell by all of the advertisements. What was the city he was in now?
Oh, he was in...
Is this a Florida man one, or is he Texas, Arlington,
Texas?
So this dude's walking out.
Texas is just as good as Florida.
Yeah, sure, exactly. So this dude's walking out in the parking lot of a hotel. This young, apparently bigger dude. It's funny, this guy describes him as this like huge monster of a guy, but I mean, you can tell just by this picture. I mean, like, you ain't no slouch yourself, bro.
Right? I was so funny because I was watching. He goes, he was freaking huge. He was like 240, 250. I'm like, you're like 280. What the fuck are you talking about, man?
So yeah, he's. But you know what? We should call this guy up and interview him about training into old age, because he's obviously doing pretty okay.
Absolutely.
But anyway, this guy comes out and tries to attack him, and they exchange punches a couple times. He punched me right in my eye. He took one in the eye, and then he just took the guy down to the ground and choked him unconscious, and then told everybody the story. So I think, let's just watch the video.
Yeah, you got to do the video a little bit. Yeah, you
can see it, hey?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So obviously this is the parking lot. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here because, here we go. So there he comes up to him. Obviously,
our hero is the guy in the orange.
Obviously it's confrontational, like immediately, right? So he just pushes on him.
I guess from that video, the guy in the white does look bigger, eh?
Sure he does. There's where he got punched in the eye. And he's like, screw this. So he punches him back, grabs him by the back, and just a pressure takedown, no big deal.
Yeah.
But he's going into a head and arm here. It's hard to tell. Can't tell if it's a head and arm or if he just kind of puts him in a side. Or he ends up putting him in a rear naked. That's right. The guy rolls
rear naked. That's where he ends up.
Yeah,
he goes to his belly, and then he goes hooks in on the one side, and then he goes into rear naked, I think.
Yeah. Now, I got to believe this guy's not an advanced level in jiu-jitsu, because
no.
But by the same token, just going to the knees is not a bad idea. But there he is, he's unconscious. So he thought he killed him. I'm going to turn my sound, make sure my sound's not too loud because the sound cuts in right away. And then he's like, "You dead, bro?" He's
Yeah,
checking
he
him
even
out.
asked me like, "You dead?" Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it.
So I just got attacked at the Lux Hotel. I don't know if the guy's, I don't think he's dead. He attacked me in the parking lot.
I don't think he's dead.
And then he swung on me and hit me in my eye. And I think I hope I didn't kill him. Nope. There he is.
Oh, he's there. And the guy's just sitting there. Yeah.
You need the police here now.
I know who
You need the police here now.
It's a guest here that
You got to get him here now.
Yeah, I love that. You got to get the police here
that's
now.
what-
Yeah, I know who he is. He's a guest here. What does that got to do with getting the police here?
Dude, they need the police there. Yeah, the guy still needs to get arrested. My favorite part is right away where he starts talking to the other
My
folks in
keys
the
are.
building.
This guy
Where's
must have
those
been on
drugs?
his breath the whole time. Either that or he just lifts weights and doesn't do cardio.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of that is adrenaline, but
Adrenaline,
like,
yeah,
he,
but
that's,
brother.
he seems like he's.
Okay.
Louise
Don't get up
hard.
on me.
Don't get up on me.
Get up on me. Hey, get up. You got to get away from that guy.
I love this part. This is so funny.
Don't go up.
He's like, "Roger,
Get back in your
don't
room.
go out there. Stay in your room."
Yeah.
Get back in your room.
Well, honestly though, like the
gotta lock
adrenaline's
up
going.
someplace.
The attack was unprovoked.
I need to get away from this fucker. I just almost killed him. Get to your fucking room. Trust me. Hey, brother, don't want to go out there.
Forearm.
Like, look at him. He's huge.
Hey, don't go out there. Motherfucker.
Oh, now this guy's swearing on the chin.
Whoa.
So that's going to be your report number.
Okay.
So right now, you're the victim of an assault.
Okay, so look, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Okay.
You're the victim. You're the victim of an assault.
Okay.
Well, yeah, the police.
Mike, we're gonna wipe
Yeah, I don't know about it.
It did kind of sound
Okay.
like you were saying you're going to get charged
Okay.
with assault.
So, you know, I just really had one of the most terrifying moments of my life this morning. And I was walking out of my hotel right there. I was walking out of the front. And right when I got to those bushes, this guy came out and asked me, was I trying to fight? And I didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. But I looked in his eyes and he was definitely on drugs. And he was huge. He was at least 250 pounds, 230, 250, kind of fluffy. And about 6 feet.
You're 250. You're like, it's got to be 230.
You know, that this guy was going to attack me.
This guy, it turns out this
And,
guy's like his attacker was
He did.
5'10",
He
and
fucking
this guy's
attacked
like
me.
5'3".
He punched me in my eye.
Right?
And he squared up. And of course I punched him back. But we ended up here in back of this car where all this blood. See all that blood?
He must have
right
clipped him good when he punched him back.
my.
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
That's blood. That's blood. And I was
Yeah,
covered
because
with
you
blood.
saw him cut up on the first
And,
on the first.
I
time
rear naked
too,
choked
right?
him.
Yeah.
And I thought I bit him first. I bit the fuck out of him.
That's right.
And I choked
Hold on. So that's where the blood came from. I don't know why he did this, but
him first. I bit the fuck
I
out
love
of
it.
him. And when I choked him, I waited.
like, dude, you
Ran back
clearly
in.
could handle yourself. Why'd you bite him?
Bite him. Yeah, you were good.
I didn't
You're
know if
good.
he was going to move again. I thought he was dead. And so we called the police. And so the police came and they're just leaving right over there. And holy shit, what a fucking exciting morning already. Dear,
Oh, I love it.
too old for this shit.
I love the
I love him.
the lethal weapon quote at the end.
Too old for this shit. I love it. I love him. I love the way it was handled. Obviously, the biting is next
Simple,
level.
but hey,
but-
the adrenaline's going. Whatever.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
just too
speaking of
funny.
old men who train jujitsu,
Yeah.
we're not old yet, but let's get into it here. So
We're
we're
getting
going to be talking a little bit today about training into middle age. So I turned 40 this year. You turned or are turning 38?
I've turned now 38. Going
Now
to,
turned 38.
Yeah,
So you're
and
getting,
each year I'm getting younger from
Yeah.
then on.
well, sure. You can say that if you want to. So it's an interesting thing turning 40 because it doesn't happen right when you're 40. Like this is a progressive thing. I remember. So first of all, I've been involved in, some sort of physical activity, whether it's martial arts or whatever, since I was 5 years old. I took my first martial arts class when I was 5 years old, and I did that until I was 21. From 21 until 24, I got pretty involved in weightlifting, and it was more just the aesthetics stuff of when you're 20 and trying to find a girl.
Yeah.
I met my now wife at 24, and stopped.
She liked you
weightlifting.
bumpy.
Yeah, stopped weightlifting, and then at 26 was when I noticed the first change, and I injured my MCL playing a neighborhood game of football, and it took 2 years to recover from. And then at 28, it was starting to feel a lot better. It was still very weak, but it was starting to feel better. And I started going back to my old karate class, and I started training in karate again at 28.
Yeah.
And I did that, and it was just really, I think what sparked it was the injury.
Right. Yeah.
So I did that, and then at 30, we opened the gym that Joanne and I run now. And then things were really looking up. Things were going, like, I was getting all of my fitness level back. Everything was doing great. I was sparring multiple times a week with people half of my age, without any problems, and doing workouts with them and keeping up with them, and sometimes pushing them, and the whole 9 yards. And then 30, I would say 37 happened. And at 37, I started to notice that I could still keep up with all the young guys, and even today, like I generally I'm keeping up with them. I mean, I'm not the last one. I'm not the one who's quitting during randori classes.
Yeah.
And I basically shark tanking myself all the time still. So that's still good. And a lot of that has to do with having more experience than a lot of the people that I'm training with. I mean, I go to Ottawa and it's a different story when I'm training with people that are higher level, more experienced than I am. But still doing pretty okay. But at 37, I really started to notice I was really tired at the end of sparring sessions, especially, and like doing it fine, just more tired afterwards.
Yeah.
And then I was noticing the aches and the pains. It takes a little longer to recover from. I had to have less high intensity days and more medium intensity days. Otherwise I would start to get overtrained. And then, really at 39, I really started to notice things. Recently had my sacrum issue, and I'm really understanding now as I'm turning 40, and a lot of this is more psychological than physiological at this point, but I'm really starting to notice that I have to change how I exercise. And, and that means I've always been a warm-up skipper. I've always been a stretching skipper. I try to get my flexibility training in while I was training, and that just didn't work. That stopped working at around 34. Yeah. And I'm not a cool down guy.
Yeah.
And none of that stuff. And I'm realizing that now I'm really going to have to start changing all of that stuff. And so I don't know. What about you? Are you?
Yeah. So basically, a very similar story, right? Trained in martial arts all the way up into my 20s. Took a few years off because of girls and booze and all the good stuff, and really started back in at about age 30, and then I really started back in, wanting to honestly. The joke is that I wanted to learn, or I wanted to do martial arts so that I could survive the zombie apocalypse, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
that's why you started in our.
I actually started in Krav Maga, yeah. So because I knew karate would only take me so far. I knew that if I got taken to the ground, I was dead, right? I understood that. I understood that the martial art that I knew wasn't going to be the be all and end all solution, and so. I started into the Krav Maga program, and I really wanted to see kind of where I was. And sorry, to take one step back. Before that, also, what happened is when I turned 30, I lost my mind, right? And basically what I mean by that is I was like, oh my God, like the number 30 hit me in a way that I was not ready for. And so I had to really prove to myself that I was still physically capable of doing things. And that was everything from hiking to running to jogging to fighting to everything. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really looking for a place where I could do this and really learn a martial art that I could go to ground, that I could survive a gun attack, a knife attack, that sort of stuff, and start training with you in Krav Maga.
Right.
And of course, Krav Maga is great for, learning a lot of the basics.
Fundamental self-defense, yeah.
Fundamental self-defense. And it's great for folks who are really focused on that. But I very quickly learned and realized that, it just wasn't enough, that I needed, I needed the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I needed the Muay Thai components that were coming from this, because there were so many things that were being left out. And, I've had back issues. I remember I used to be a repo man, and I've had back issues since I was in my 20s. So like I threw my back out like I say, I think it was like 19 years old was the first time where I was like, ooh, and I couldn't stand up, and I had to get a needle and the whole thing, right?
Really?
For muscle relaxants. And I've always been dealing with, I wouldn't say always dealing with a physical injury of some kind, but I've always felt, the recovery was, it was a couple days and I was good to go. And now, as I'm training more and more and more, I'm finding it is taking me longer, moving away from, really, to your point, a lot of the high intensity and that sort of stuff. And as I've aged, especially now, like I'm still hanging with the 20-year-olds. I don't even care. Like right now, I'm less about, having cardio issues or technique issues. It's really just my body, and how I'm training. So I have had to bring down my intensity frequency, a lot now that I'm noticing. And my injuries are taking longer to heal. Yeah. It's that fundamentally, that's just a fundamental reality. And so we'll probably talk a little bit more about kind of how we've shifted, but basically one of the biggest things I've done to shift away from is, using, say, weights or exercises that are actually damaging to the body, and using things like resistance bands and using more body weight exercises to maintain kind of what I've got, as opposed to trying to build on what I've got. And I find that's kind of where the change is happening,
because I'm actually about to go back to weights.
Okay.
And the major reason is because I was doing the body weight stuff for quite a long time, especially since we started the academy. I mean, everything, first of all, you got to understand, for the first, how long have you been teaching for the academy now? Since 2017?
3-4 years, something like that.
Or no, you started teaching helping with Krav in late 2016.
Late 2016, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been about let's say 3.5-4 years.
4 years, yeah. 3-4 years, yeah.
And you remember back when you joined there, I was teaching every single Muay Thai class.
Yep.
I was teaching every single karate class that we had every week. The only classes I was not teaching were, and actually shortly after you left, I started teaching, shortly after you joined. It would have been early 2016 that I started teaching a large portion of the jiu-jitsu classes.
Yeah, it was 2016. Yeah, that's true.
So I was teaching some of the jiu-jitsu, all of the karate, all of the Muay Thai, and occasionally teaching Krav Maga as well. And even prior to that, from 2010 until almost 2014, I taught everything we did, except for the women's classes. Joanne always taught those. And when you're teaching the class, the technique portion, you're just teaching, so that's fine. But when you're sparring, you're sparring with everybody. You're working out. And for the longest time, every time we would do a conditioning class, I would be doing the conditioning with everybody.
Yeah.
We were often, the only time that I wouldn't do pad work with everybody or in conditioning or something like that, or, the free weight exercises would be when we had an even number of people, and I would make everybody an odd number. So I all the calisthenics, I was doing that like 5 days a week for years, and I never had a problem there. But especially since I started jujitsu, I started slowly. I just wasn't smart enough to realize it fast enough. I was creating an imbalance, like we talked about, in the anterior core. And I'm thinking about using weights now to correct that imbalance.
Right.
So right now I'm just doing physio stuff, which is, it's not a lot of resistance stuff. It's all just calisthenic stuff.
Yeah.
But as soon as I can handle it, I'm going to be picking up, weighted lunges, deadlift, and, various other exercises like that.
For sure. So one of the things, and I think the reason I'm moving, I shouldn't say I'm moving away from weights, but I'm cutting back on my weight training and moving into a more resistance band, is because what I'm finding is, because I have always been weight heavy, like using my weights and weight heavy as well. And what I'm finding is that it's causing imbalances in certain planes of movement.
Sure, because you're just doing conventional weightlifting stuff.
I'm doing it right, exactly. And so now I've moved to the landmine, which is a much safer way of lifting, whether it's deadlifting,
a lot more functional too.
Squat. It's a lot more functional, and that has really helped. So I'm still sticking with my landmine, but I've moved away from a lot of the bro curls, a lot of that sort of stuff, and I'm using a resistance band to really try to create more flexibility and while maintaining my strength. And the other aspect I'm noticing is as I've gotten older is that, so, and I don't know if this is actually physiological or if it's in my mind or what it is, but so once you get over that kind of that 10 to 12 rep range, when you're in that 15 rep range, you're feeling that burn, and then you get to like 20, and that's how you build endurance. And what I've found is that as I've gotten older, my muscle endurance seems to drop off faster. And so I even will notice it over a 3 or 4 day period. Say I'm away on a long weekend, and so you don't train through the long weekend, you miss a class, whatever, a week or something like that. And I'm noticing that, where I could throw 15 strikes or 20 strikes, or I can hold that grip that extra little bit, it is seeming to drop off a lot faster than it used to. And I'm finding that the resistance bands are kind of recreating that real world simulation, and is helping keep my muscle endurance up.
I've been noticing the same thing for the last 3 or 4 years. I'm having to work harder to maintain the same level of endurance.
Right. Yeah.
Strength is no problem.
Yeah.
If I just need to do strength movements, that's okay. Although I suspect I'm probably at a higher risk for injury when I'm doing strength movements.
Right.
The only thing is I haven't, by and large, I really haven't been pushing it to the point where I'm really risking injury anyway. But I'm willing to bet, for example, if I were doing deadlift, when I was doing deadlift at 22 or 23, I could do it with probably worse form, or, a little bit more jerky of a motion, and probably do the exact same movement now. I'd get injured now, whereas I wouldn't then, sort of thing. But by and large, strength hasn't really dropped off much at all, but endurance does get harder to maintain.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And it's interesting that this is kind of has been the trade-off for me, especially because strength is not an issue. I hear it all the time in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They're like, man, you're so strong. You're so strong. You're so strong. Yeah. Right. But that's also technique and experience. But, it's this idea of being stronger longer is really kind of been what my focus has been.
And I suspect that a lot of that of us being similar too probably has a lot to do with our body types. We're both big people, and I'm big vertically, and you're big vertically and horizontally.
It's all right.
I wasn't saying that in a bad way.
I think I just got called fat again. No,
I absolutely was not saying that in a bad way.
No.
Because your calf muscle is as big as my head, so horizontally can be muscle too.
See if I can.
Yeah, you and your big calves just show the world. Okay, that whitewashed your skin so badly.
Right?
First of all, your leg looks shaved. Get some hair.
It's totally hairy. That I promise.
Well, not on the camera. It's not. Anyway, what the hell was I saying now? We're both larger people, and cardio is for small people. Let's be honest with you. The cardio is for small people.
Yeah.
Strength is for bigger people.
Yep.
So it strength is our strength, more being larger people. Cardio is always even when I was younger, I had to work on cardio more than I had to work on strength. Except for when I was really young, at like 6'5" and 172 pounds at the age of 15, that was a little bit different, but I was also 15, so, anybody who doesn't have cardio at 15 just needs to exercise more.
Yeah, it's
but
true.
I suspect as we go along and as we get into the 50 and get into 60, I suspect it's going to be easier for us to maintain strength levels, harder for us to maintain cardio levels. Now, I'm willing to bet. I look at guys like Shane, who's one of our blue belts in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
he's 50. I can never remember. He's 52 or 54 now.
Yeah, I think he's 54.
54.
Yeah, he might rear naked choke me for giving the wrong number, but I'm pretty sure he's 54.
Something like that. He's in his early to mid 50s, anyways, and he complains about his cardio. But he's in his mid to late 50s or early to mid 50s. His cardio is pretty good for a guy in his 50s.
I would say so.
But he's also not as large of a person.
Yeah.
And people call him strong, and he is strong for a guy in his 50s.
For sure.
I think that Shane is strong for a guy in his 50s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if I want to outstrength Shane, I can outstrength Shane. And probably because I'm, 12 to 14 years younger. I'm just not going to narrow down his age now. I am more than a decade younger than him.
Yeah.
But I suspect that even if we were the same age, I would still be stronger than Shane. And he would probably have better cardio than me. It's just different body types, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's I think a lot of time what ends up happening as we get older, and this could be Shane's case or anybody's, but I think this is actually also general, is people go, oh, my cardio is no good. It's your muscle endurance that's no good. It's not your cardio that's calving out.
Yeah,
right?
You're breathing too heavy because your muscle physiology isn't good enough. It
isn't good enough, right? And so in Shane's case, that might be what's happening. And this is really why I'm focusing on this is that I think Shane
doesn't have bad cardio. Shane's got quite good cardio. Shane's still hanging with the younger guys too.
Right, but when he's complaining about being tired, I think this is something that happens to us as we get older.
Yeah. Probably also comparative. We're comparing ourselves to our younger selves,
Yeah, exactly. But I think this idea of fatiguing and you feel it in jiu-jitsu, right? Like you're pulling on the grips and you're moving and whatnot. Like we're breathing heavy, but I genuinely think that it's that yes, cardio. You need to make sure that you're on the bike and you're hitting bags and you're moving and all of this. But I think a lot of this is more of a muscle fatigue situation for a lot of people that haven't trained through. But kind of changing direction. Sorry,
Let's talk about training. So, in terms of martial arts training, in terms of weight training, both of us have had our stints with those two things. I've been certified as a personal trainer in the past.
Yeah.
Let's talk about two things. Let's talk about how our training is changing and how we expect it to change in the future, just in case there are those people who are in their, early 30s right now and have, the degeneration of the human condition to look forward to.
Right. Exactly.
And we'll talk about that, but also let's talk about diet.
Yes, I was just going to mention
the major thing that prevents you and I looking like Greek gods, I can't say that with a straight face, is the fact that we each have horrendous diets.
100%.
Absolutely terrible diets. And
100%.
strangely enough, my diet over the last 2.5 years has been worse than your diet.
It has, and it's amazing.
You eat more food than me,
Yes,
but I've been eating worse food than you.
that is 100%
Which do we
true.
want to talk about first? We want to talk about diet or training first?
I think let's talk a little bit about the changing in our training regime, and then we'll go into diet. Because I think the idea here is that because really the train actually no let's switch that because food does lead into training. So
so let's talk about this then. When I was young, I was thin. Like I say, at 15, I was 6'5". I weighed 172 pounds. By the time I was 17, I was 178 pounds and 6'7". And then at 19, I was about 195 pounds. 21, I started hitting the weights, started filling out a little bit at the same time. You know, it was a coincidental thing. I was about 215 pounds at by 22. I was obviously still 6'7". But I was always a thin guy, and I never had a problem having some semblance of a six-pack, despite the fact that I ate worse in my 20s than I do now.
Yeah.
And full disclosure, I used to be a meat and potatoes guy.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what a vegetable looked like until about 23. And I would down protein shakes with a multivitamin so that I could make myself feel better about not eating broccoli, right? For example.
Yeah.
And I took it so far as getting the multivitamins that were like the whole food multivitamins, where all the vitamins were naturally sourced. I just smacked my microphone from actual food rather than being synthesized vitamins, just because I knew that I ate so poorly, but never had a problem with body fat ratio. And that changed at about, I would say it started changing at about 26, around the same time that I wrecked my knee.
Yeah.
And I'm still not a big guy. I don't really have a gut or anything like that.
Yeah.
What's interesting is my whole rib cage seems to be getting bigger. So my chest looks a little bit less defined.
Yeah.
Because my bottom ribs almost stick out.
Kind of going like this,
and they stick out as far as my chest does, and it makes it look like I've got a little bit of a belly, but my belly is perfectly flat. What I do have is the spare tire love handles, and they don't seem like they're going away anytime soon.
That's been the story of my life. So like I remember very vividly in grade 3 we all got weighed. I don't know why, but we all got weighed, and I was the heaviest kid in class. So I've always been the heavy kid. And in my family, you know, all my family, and I know yours too, but all my family came out of the Great Depression. So in our family, it was very, very simple. You ate everything that was on your plate. You ate. There was never a leftover. You ate all the food. Yeah. Right. My brother and
my mother used to set a timer on the kitchen stove, and I would get the whack-in if I didn't eat all of my food within the timer. Just because Mom wasn't putting up with that shit.
Exactly.
Mom listens to this podcast too. Right now, she's like, "Oh my God, you just told the world that I beat you."
Well, yeah, Mom. And
so shouldn't have beat me.
So my brother is 6'6" and I think he's about 450 right now, give or take. And he and I would literally race each other to see, because there was only enough food for everybody, and then there was usually one extra helping. So we would race we would race to eat, and then see who got the next helping, right? Yeah. I remember I was actually mentioning today to one of our students about because he was asking me about being young and because his son is kind of a big kid. And he was asking like, what was it like being a kid? And I said, well, put it to you this way. I would literally come home for lunch come home from school, and my snack before dinner was a can of mushroom soup and a can of beans. I would mix the two together and eat that. Right.
That sounds disgusting, by the way.
Oh, it was horrible, but lots of salt, lots of pepper. It was good to go. But
yeah. But I was a package of fried ham and mustard.
Nice. But like, I was never, and not to blame my mom and dad, but I was never taught like food portioning or what it actually meant to be full. You know, I even remember as a kid, you know, people would be like, don't eat that bag of chips. It's going to ruin your dinner. I'm like, bitch, I'll eat this bag of chips, those bag of chips, his bag of chips, those 3 bags of chips over there, and still eat dinner.
You know,
right?
it's funny. I think we both grew up in similar situations.
Yeah.
And the only difference being, like, your family is like, I know people use big boned as a euphemism for fat. I don't mean it as a euphemism for fat.
For sure.
You guys are large people. Like, you've got large bone structure. Yeah. You've got wide shoulders. You've got wide chests. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
Like, I'm not calling you guys fat.
No.
My family, we're not small people, but I think what caused that in my family wasn't necessarily that we were big people. It was that there were 4 boys and a father, and then mom who cooked the meals. Yeah. So it was the same idea. It was competition eating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just for a different reason. And I also had a dad who wouldn't eat. Well, first of all, he grew up on Depression era food. Right. You know, we're talking like the macaroni and tomato. You know, you crush up a tomato and you just have macaroni because they're both cheap. And then you put a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper on it, you're good to go. Not exactly a low glycemic meal.
Right.
You know, the treat when I was younger, when my dad's family and my family would get together, what we would do for like the treating ourselves meal was KFC.
Right.
And, you know, after having lived through the Depression, my grandmother, you know, I suspect this was probably like her reward to herself. Nobody really talked about it. This is just what I suspect. Yeah. Her reward to herself for kind of like living through the Depression is she would have a big gulp a day.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about a small big gulp. I'm talking about the friggin' 70s and 80s when a big gulp was like a 4-liter big gulp.
Yeah.
And she would have one of those a day. When she developed diabetes, she switched to Diet Coke. That was the only change she made. Unfortunately, and probably not surprisingly, she ultimately ended up dying due to complications from diabetes after having multiple amputations.
Yeah.
Not much of a surprise there. But I grew up in a family that had very, very poor eating habits.
That's right.
My mother didn't.
Yeah.
But my mother was the extreme minority. And the only one that she really had an influence over was my first younger brother, Kevin.
Right.
And he always ate pretty well.
Yeah.
But I sure as hell didn't.
Yeah.
And my whole family, your family's probably the same. Our emotions are extremely closely tied to food.
Everything we do, sad, happy, eaters. We're 100% emotional eaters. Like my wife and I, we even joke about that. It's like, oh, I had a bad day today, so I think I'm going to eat my anger right now, right? Yeah. So we absolutely do that.
Some people drink it away. Some people smoke it away. Some people snort it away.
Exactly.
We eat it away.
We eat it away for sure. And so what ended up happening with me especially is as I got older, I realized, oh my God, like the way I was quote unquote taught to eat wasn't good, right?
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening is I actually transitioned my diet away from a lot of the like I got rid of the ketchup and the you know all.
When did you do this?
So this would have happened probably about age 26, 27 or so.
Really?
I started getting a lot of this stuff out of my diet.
I started doing it in the last couple of months.
Yes.
After about 2.5 years of just like going ketchup.
Well,
crazy. I had a container of ketchup here beside my office desk for the last year. You've seen it.
Well, you've known me for what, 6 years now. Have you ever seen me drink a pop or order a pop at dinner?
Not really. No.
Right. Like I don't drink pop. My big treat is, and it's always the running joke is Popeyes, because Popeyes chicken is the greatest thing ever created by mankind. So, you know, well, actually Bojangles chicken is better. But anyway, it's a whole thing. Anyway, so I actually eat very, very healthy, but to your point, I overeat. So like,
yeah, it's not that you're not getting enough nutrients. It's that you're getting too many calories.
Absolutely. It's 100% as calories. And so what ended up happening, what I found in my psychology, and I still battle with this to this very day, is the can't let it go to waste. Got to eat it now. Got to eat all of it. We can't put any in the fridge. And, you know, because we have to eat now because the Huns are coming over the mountains and they're going to come and take all the food.
Yeah.
take all of our food.
And the
I
Huns
still-
are your brother.
my brother. I still like almost prison eat sometimes with, and it's like my 3-year-old daughter, my
reach
wife
over
are
to
not
my
taking
plate,
my
you'll be
food.
pulling back a nub.
Yeah, and I still, this is the hardest psychology I've had. I've managed to break all these other habits, but like if there's a package of 4, we'll cook like 4 or 5 pork chops. My wife will have one, my daughter has a half, and I eat the rest, right? Like, and so it's my caloric intake that's too high.
Yeah. So, and at this point we're both like that. Cause I'm eating more good food as well, just still too much of it. And well, for the last 2.5 years, actually, I've been eating too much, just bad food.
Yeah.
Too much takeout is the thing. It's very difficult to eat well without spending tons of money.
It's true.
When you're eating out all the time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in terms of like something that might be useful for listeners rather than just us yammering on about what we do, looking at myself as an example, being my size, I'm about 235 pounds. Well, I'm probably a little more than that. Let's put a COVID 10 on there and I haven't weighed myself in a while, but let's just be pessimistic and say I'm 245 right now. Mm-hmm. But I'm just over 6.5 feet tall. Yeah. So I probably require 2,800, maybe 3,000, maybe a little more than 3,000 calories a day.
Yeah.
But I probably eat between 4,000, 4,500, sometimes 5,000 or more calories in the day. Yeah. And so no matter how much you're exercising, you're not burning an additional 2,000 calories a day in middle age.
Yeah.
I was able to do that because I've probably eaten the same since I was younger. And I was, like I said, I had no problem with body fat in my early years, eating worse than I do today.
That's right.
And still as many calories. But as we're getting older, I think, the tip there is you've got to just be aware of the number of calories because your basal metabolism is slowing down, even though you are exercising more.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. And I think that what people don't realize is how many calories they are eating in general. So it's a number that, and I actually recommend, it's called freedieting.com. And I recommend that people go there. It's got a great resource. It's got a lot of calculators and that sort of stuff. So right now I had actually gone almost above 300 here recently, and I brought it back down. Because my goal is to always be at the minimum under 300 pounds. But so I walk around kind of at that 290 to 300 range, right? Yeah. And so I consume 3,500 or my should be is 3,500 calories a day. Is what I should be eating. And then
you're probably closer to the 5,000 as well.
Yeah, but I don't. And so what I do is I don't add on any of my training to my caloric intake. So, because what people will do is they'll eat 2,000 and they go, well, I worked out, so I take in this extra amount. So I always tell people, find out what your basal metabolic rate is, times that, between 1.1 and 1.5, depending upon if you're a construction worker or something like that. Yeah. And that really should be what you're intaking and burning every single day. And so what I found is that as I've gotten older, the fluctuation in the amount of calories has a longer impact on me. So, I overeat this one day, and then it's that much harder to burn it off, and the impact of the quality of food. So I had Popeyes actually last night, right? Speaking of eating healthier, but I actually had Popeyes last night. Loved friggin' Popeyes, right? But I notice it affecting my training the next day.
That is one thing that I've always noticed. Is when I eat bad, I'm noticing
a lot more.
I've never put on weight, at least not quickly. It's taken decades.
Yeah.
But I always was lethargic, and it affects your ability to perform. Now, to your point, if people don't understand how much is in food, how many calories are in food, just to kind of give 2 examples, like just a medium-sized Big Mac meal, like that's not supersized. It's a medium fries, medium drink, is 1,000. It's almost 1,100 calories.
That's a third of the amount of food that I should eat.
Yeah, well, even for you and I,
Yeah,
That's
that's
too
what I'm
much.
saying. Yeah, but I know that's a third of what I should eat all day
All
long.
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. The average person, I mean, let's say the average person is 175 pounds.
Right.
Just say, basal metabolism there is going to be somewhere around 2,000 to 2,200 calories. Put in a 800 calorie workout, they're still under 3,000 calories a day.
Exactly.
And that's a high intensity day to have an 800 calorie day
workout.
Yeah,
you trained and boxed for an hour.
Right. Exactly.
Minimum.
And potentially more. Right.
Yeah.
And that's still more than a third of their calories for the day. So if they have 3 meals like that, there's several hundred calories, if not close to 1,000 calories more. And that's after a high intensity day, let alone on a rest day or something like that. Now you compare that, so when you're eating out, why don't you just go to Subway? Well, shit, man, a 12-inch cold cut combo from Subway is 730 calories.
Yeah.
That's that's if you don't get the chips and you don't get a soda that has sugar in it.
I have to say
730 calories.
Yeah, sorry. Subway is I love the marketing of those guys. They're the only people. They're the only people who ever were like, "Hey, we're going to teach people that it's okay to eat a loaf of bread."
Yeah, exactly.
In one sitting, like
exactly.
Who it's crazy. No, and I think that this
and by the way, a cold cut trio also has a full gram of sodium per 6-inch sandwich. That's 2,000 milligrams of salt.
Yeah.
Per 12-inch sub, and that's assuming that you didn't have them put extra salt or pepper on it.
That's right.
Or there's no salt in whatever sauce you're putting on.
Exactly.
That is insane.
It is. And it's interesting because there's a lot of these things. There's a lot of these, like, you'll hear like cut out salt in your diet and cut out, you got to make sure that you're getting lots of fruits and vegetables and all of this. And all of this stuff is so important. But as we've gotten older, it's mattering that much more. Because
it's mattering more because it's more fiber, which means more filler, which means you're not going to be eating as much, and you're still getting nutrient dense foods. Exactly. And I think for the average person, I mean, we're not talking like if we want to have a conversation about like the pro athlete that's going after the worlds, first of all, even people our age, even people in their late 30s or 40 years old, that are, competing on at that sort of a level. First of all, you don't have that much of a day job.
Right.
Or you're a genetic freak.
Yep.
You're talking about like a fraction of a percentage of the people.
Yeah. There's a couple
that even have that as a goal anymore.
Yeah.
People our age are working full-time jobs.
Yep.
And, in some cases, like yours and mine, like you work a 40-hour work week, plus you teach at the gym 4 days a week.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've been, lately I haven't been, thankfully. I'm trying to change that, but for nearly a decade I've been working 80+ hour work weeks.
Yeah.
I don't have the time to do that. Even though it's part of my life, I still don't have the time to do it.
Yeah,
exactly. I don't have time to eat properly. So really what we're talking about here, middle-aged people, regular people, the type of things that we're talking about right now, that can make a big difference in somebody's
massive
health levels.
Well,
really we're talking a lot about body fat, but really what we're talking about is health levels here, not necessarily body weight.
And I'm going to lean on me as an example, right? Like, now the camera does add 10 pounds, of course, but but the reality is, but the reality is that for being almost 40, 300 pounds, like we were talking about, I can hang with the 20-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
And this is primarily due to the fact that I am as rigid as I am with my diet, right?
Yeah.
Like the quality of food that I eat.
And in contrast to that, after 2.5 years of having my diet slip into ridiculousness, you're handling the 20-year-olds better than I'm handling the 20-year-olds, and there's only 2 years of age between us.
Right. And it's, and this is the thing, is that it is the fuel that you're putting into the gas tank. And so I implore people to try to make some of those changes, right?
Yeah.
Try to fuel.
In terms of specific recommendations,
yeah,
I don't think that's even really needed. I mean, like people, it's not, the problem has never been that people don't know what to eat.
Yeah.
The problem is that we want what we want. And we like the serotonin buzz when we have something high in sugar or high in fat high in salt.
Yeah.
And so we convince ourselves that we just tell ourselves, well, I don't know what to eat. It's a load of bullshit.
Yeah.
We know what to eat. We know
Yeah.
what we should be eating. We just don't want to do it.
Yeah. But so what
the trick here is more about just doing it than it is about talking about strategies that will allow you to fit it into your life so that you will do it.
Yeah, and one of the strategies that I want to touch on is the macro strategy, right? And this will actually help a lot of people, I think, because what this is there's, and there's the 3 macros, right? Your fat, your protein, and your carbohydrates. And so what will happen is people will discover this, and then they get into this minutia. Don't worry about the freaking minutia. Get your protein, get your carbohydrates, and get your fat levels. And everybody has
just get it out of as many real foods as possible. Because a Big Mac with 148 grams of carbohydrate doesn't count as your carbohydrate load for the day.
Exactly. And
it just has to be real food.
Yeah, it has to be real food, and you want to try to get as close to what you need as your macro as you possibly can, and if you focus on that, you will start to feel better. You'll be able to train more, and you'll be able to have an overall general better health.
Because if you're eating whole foods, your micronutrients, your vitamins and minerals are largely going to take care of themselves.
Absolutely.
If you're eating whole foods,
vitamin D.
Except for what?
Vitamin D.
Well,
we don't get enough. Yeah. Well, even that, we get so little vitamin D in this country. And
maybe we should touch on that before we start talking about how we change training, and just to maybe wrap up the nutrition part of it is supplementation. And you and I know quite a lot about supplementation because we worked in the supplement industry for several years each.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, working in the supplement industry, by and large, has only caused me to use less supplements.
Agreed. Yeah.
Not saying that, natural supplements don't work or have their place.
Yeah.
But the natural health food industry as an industry.
Yes.
Obviously there are reputable and there are disreputable. But I think, as usual, the disreputable ruins it for the reputable.
It's true, yeah.
And the disreputable is too often who gets all of the attention and what everybody ends up taking and what Joe Rogan ends up pushing that are absolute placebos and bullshit. If you're taking supplements, first of all, protein supplements, very sparingly. I think that if you work a busy life and you can get a good meal replacement shake in, then fine. Because if it comes down to not eating or eating a Big Mac or having a meal replacement shake, the meal replacement shake should probably win 9 times out of 9.
For sure.
Okay. That means 100% for those of you who don't do math. However, if you're eating your meals every day, but you're the type of guy who has a protein shake after your workout, why? Nobody in North America, unless you live in friggin' Ethiopia, you do not have a protein deficient diet. Nobody in North America, unless they're eating stupidly, as a protein deficient.
And that is one thing I was going to say is that, if you're such a carb heavy person, if you're eating 40, 50, 60% of your diet in carbohydrates, you're not getting enough protein to heal your body.
But most people are anyways, because we're overeating. When we're eating that much carbs, it's not that we're not eating that much carbs and not eating our protein requirements. It's that we're eating too much food to begin with. And it's just that the carbohydrates end of things is too much.
I agree.
You have to try hard not to meet your protein requirements. Which means you have to pretty much not eat. Or it's harder if you're eating a vegan diet.
Yes.
The less meat you eat, the harder it would be to get your protein requirements. But if you're an omnivore, a North American omnivore, what that means for the average North American, you've got your protein requirements. What the average person is missing, this guy included, is our micronutrients in terms of supplementation. That's a multivitamin. Now, multivitamins are packed way too high in nutrients. You take these one a days and then you wonder why you're pissing out yellow. It's because you didn't use all the vitamin Bs that you took in, and so they're water soluble and you just pissed them out.
And vitamin B, for God's sake, like it's in most meat. Like if you're getting your protein intake, you're getting your B's. You're getting your B's.
But now your water soluble. Here's the interesting thing too that I know from the being in the supplement industry.
Mm-hmm.
Your water soluble nutrients are best taken multiple times a day.
Yeah.
Meaning spread out throughout your food. Because B vitamins, for example, will circulate in your bloodstream for only about an average of 8 hours.
Yeah.
What your body hasn't used, what you haven't uptaken into cells for metabolic activity, get kicked into the kidneys to the bladder and out.
Yep.
Your fat soluble vitamins and your minerals, by and large, they'll circulate and stay in your body a little bit longer. Although a lot of your water soluble minerals are the same sort of thing. They'll get kicked around in the bloodstream for a while and then excreted out. Fat soluble is not as much.
It sticks around, yeah.
So they also build up and are stored better in tissue cells than water soluble vitamins are. So if you're going to take multiple vitamins a day, it should be your water soluble vitamins.
Yeah.
If you're taking a vitamin D supplement because this is Canada and it's minus 58 outside with the wind chill, and so you're bundled up so tight that you haven't seen the sun hasn't kissed your skin in months, take your vitamin D once a day. That's fine.
Yeah. See, I agree with you on a lot of things. I would argue the vitamin D, we are horrifically under vitamin D in Canada and in North America in general. We don't eat fish properly and we don't get enough sunlight. Even organizations like the health or Cancer Society of Canada is recommending people are supplementing with 1,000 IU, right? So it is vitamin D is one of those things I think people aren't getting enough of.
You can take 1,000 IU of vitamin D once a day.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying don't take it. I'm saying it's a fat soluble vitamin, A, D, E, and K.
Yeah,
exactly. Fat soluble. You can take those once a day. That's totally fine.
And I would argue that it is. Never mind. It's important that. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is that even if you're taking a multi, you should be taking a multi and a vitamin D, because the amount of vitamin D that is in a multi is it's like 100 IU. It's basically
and that's a reasonable suggestion for any of your fat soluble vitamins as well, because uptake of fat soluble vitamins, I mean, your body will store them a little bit longer, but they're a little bit more difficult to digest. And absorb as well. So
for sure. And on the protein on the protein front, one of the comments I want to make is obviously like older folks do need more protein for healing and that sort of stuff. But
again, if you're getting it in your diet,
it doesn't matter. And this goes to the point I was making about the macros, is that certain size of people, certain weights, depending upon what your lifestyle is, how hard you're actually training, you need to make sure that you are getting enough protein in your diet, or you're going to be prone to more injuries, right? Yeah. So I'm not saying that people aren't getting enough protein. I'm saying find out. And this is my whole thing with macros. Do the, people go, I do a research because you read a YouTube or you watch a YouTube video. No, do the proper research on your body and find out what you're supposed to do. I believe the Health Canada recommends about 1.6 grams or 1.4 grams of protein per pound of body weight for a non-athlete. Yeah. For athletes, it can be as high as 0.8 of a gram. Upwards of 1 gram. If you're getting to the 1 gram range, you're probably like
you're saying per pound?
Per pound, yeah. 1 gram per pound of body weight.
So let's say at that upper echelon, just for ease of numbers.
But so like the 1 pound per body weight, like we're talking.
That's upper echelon. That's like Olympic level athlete, professional
level,
athlete.
Professional athlete.
Younger people.
Exactly.
But let's use that number just because it's a nice round number. Okay. Let's say average. Again, just for sake of argument, let's say the average person weighs 180 pounds.
Yep.
And we're looking at 1 gram per pound.
Yeah.
Okay. A 6-ounce chicken breast, which is not a large chicken breast. That's like a medium-sized chicken breast. Your large chicken breast is 8, 9, 10 ounces. Okay. Yeah. So just a medium-sized chicken breast has 54 grams of protein.
Yeah.
So if let's just say that you're ridiculous and you eat the only thing you eat in a day is 3 6-ounce medium chicken breasts.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? In terms of your protein requirement,
You're
you've
good.
already had 162 grams of protein that day,
Yeah.
which is almost your 1 pound per 1 gram per pound.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now, if you're on the 0.8 or even the 0.6, you've eaten over. So that's why I say it's
and that
not,
translates, and just so people understand that when you overeat in protein, that protein doesn't just leave your body. Guess what happens? It
no, it
turns
gets
to
broken
sugar.
down into nitrates.
Yeah.
Well, no, protein doesn't get turned into sugar.
It does. Through the
Protein
Krebs
gets
system.
turned into nitrates.
Krebs
Nitrates.
system. Our Krebs cycle. It does. It does.
Yeah, it can burn it for energy, but protein doesn't get converted into
well, not into like glucose, but yes, it can actually end up being stored as energy.
Yeah, your body can
fat.
Yeah. But it doesn't burn clean.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So now if you're eating those 3 chicken breasts a day, and you're on the 0.8 or the 0.6 for a regular human being, and then you down a Monster shake with an additional 60 grams of protein, it's all just fart gas.
Exactly.
There's no point to it. You're wasting your money.
You're turning money into fart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
So
anyway.
So I think if we sum that up, I think we can agree a multi.
Yeah.
Whether it's a 1 a day or a multi a day.
Yeah.
If you're going to take anything more than once a day, then you're looking at a B supplement on top and a D.
Yeah.
And you know what? As an athlete, a CalMag is not a bad idea.
Yeah, that's fair.
And taking a CalMag separately is not a bad idea. Calcium, magnesium, and iron don't mix well in the gut when they're like, it doesn't make you sick, but they don't digest very well when they're all together.
Yeah.
So at least that's what the experts told us for years.
Yeah.
So that, having that separate is not necessarily a bad idea either.
Yeah.
And if you're a female, or if you're in the sport where you're bruising a lot, like contact sports, and you bruise easily, an iron supplement might not be a bad idea either. But that should be that's easy to test in your blood. And we live in
that. What I would always make sure you get tested.
Yeah, just know what your blood levels are.
Yeah, exactly. But
so let's move on to how we change our training here. So I mean, we talked about less high intensity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the secret, I'm trying to remember the name of this guy. They call him the fittest man in the world. He's in his late 60s or early 70s now.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and find his name. But he's had this moniker for eons.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's going to talk about Matt Fraser, and Ross Edgley, like these CrossFitters, and so anyway, I'll try and find it when you're talking, but he's a super old dude. He's been exercising all his life, and he was called the fittest man in the world forever. And I remember I was watching the Tim Ferriss show.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He was on the Tim Ferriss show, and Tim Ferriss asked him, like, you've been working out for like 55 years now. How has your exercise changed? And he said, as he's gotten older, it's been a several decades long transition from when he was in his 20s to high intensity, low frequency.
Mm-hmm.
He got a lot of rest, but when he exercised, it was very intense exercise.
Right. Yeah.
That's all the heavy weights, the CrossFit, high impact.
Yeah.
Like a lot of ballistic training and basically athlete training.
Yep.
And then up to the point where he was being interviewed, which was like late 60s or early 70s, he had reached the point where he had transitioned to working out 7 days a week. He doesn't take rest days.
Right.
But he doesn't do high impact or high intensity training anymore.
Right.
He only does medium and low intensity exercise.
Yeah.
But he does it way worse. He used to work out only 3 to 4 days a week.
Yeah.
He now works out 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And he'll do longer duration. And when he was younger, he would like 30-minute workout there and done. When you're doing high intensity exercise, if you're exercising for longer than 30 minutes, you're spending too much time between sets staring at the girls in the gym.
Agreed.
or
100%.
talking to your buddies,
Yeah.
or whatever,
Texting or doing
or
your
flexing in the mirror.
Yeah.
Like that's just a fact.
Getting
okay?
them grams. Yeah.
Exactly. So in older age, he works out for an hour,
Mm-hmm.
but about 70% of that workout is dynamic and static stretching.
Yeah.
So he stretches for a large portion of his workout, and he does like incorporate stretching into his workout.
Yeah.
But it's all medium intensity stuff, and he doesn't lift weights anymore, low impact stuff. And he just does calisthenics now into his 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Now take the happy medium there, because 40 or late 30s is pretty, that's where you're kind of around that midpoint between 20 and 70, whatever, 5 or whatever, you're close to it. The 37 and a half, let's say. At that midpoint, you probably should be doing some medium impact, if not high impact. You should probably be exercising 30 to 45 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
But you should probably not be doing high intensity more than once or twice a week.
That's right. Yeah.
And this is kind of what I've garnered from my own research, but also what this guy said he did at his age.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes sense, right?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but there is research to back up, especially when it comes to high intensity, that once or twice a week.
Yeah.
Like especially as you get older, they're starting to find that it's still having a great impact, but it's that time. It's that heal time, right?
So for myself, in terms of martial arts, I'm doing a lot more jujitsu rolling than I am Muay Thai sparring.
Yep.
Muay Thai is high impact.
It is.
It's also high intensity. You're going balls out for 2 minutes or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you get, in training, usually it's a 30-second rest.
Yeah.
I got flies in here now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that is very anaerobic interval training.
Yeah.
That's high intensity training. Jiu-jitsu, you're doing 5-minute rounds.
Yeah.
If you need a rest, you're sitting out for an entire round. You're sitting out for an entire 5-minute round.
That's right. Yeah.
But what I try to do is I try to, whether it goes 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour, where we are in North America, we still got that Brazilian culture thing where they go for hours and hours. But I mean, we're still trying to create that culture in North America. But whether it's 30, 45 or an hour, I'm trying to go for the whole time, but you try to make it more of a medium intensity thing so that you can go for longer. Yeah. And so because you can do that, and just the nature of jiu-jitsu is lower impact, it can be higher stress on your joints depending on how you're doing it.
Right.
But I mean, if you're doing it irresponsibly, Muay Thai is higher impact still, higher stress on your joints still. But the only way it's higher stress for jiu-jitsu is if you're too dumb to tap.
Yeah.
But I find myself gravitating more towards that as I'm getting older, and I'm leaving Muay Thai. I mean, you still love doing Muay Thai. And frankly, at 37, 38, I was still doing Muay Thai on a regular as well. But I would say in the last year, it's probably been that I haven't done as much Muay Thai. And as I get older, I'll probably continually gravitate more towards Muay Thai. Jiu-jitsu. And leave the Muay Thai to like the Joshes of the world who are 21 years old. Right.
Well, and so this is actually, I literally have a transition game plan already set forth in my mind, right? Because I'm already feeling that, like I'm starting to feel the call of jiu-jitsu for my body, the high intensity, a lot of that is starting to wear on me, and I'm feeling it, and I'm starting to, like I say, moving into resistance bands, moving into because I always do a little bit of extra training outside of regular class time. Not a little bit, I do a fair bit, but it's all about keeping my joints going, keeping my movement, keeping my strength, being stronger longer, building up that muscle endurance. And I have a plan that, because I do, as you know, want to compete at least one or two more times in Muay Thai, that once I've gone through that and have that kind of under my belt, that I'm going to transition into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've always said that BJJ is my retirement plan. Right. Is that it's the martial art that I'm going to continue on to go well into my 80s and 90s, right? Because I plan to live to at least 200. Over time, I'm going to be reducing how much Muay Thai I'm doing because of that high impact, that high intensity. I plan to continuously always be training in Muay Thai because I do love it, and it's a fantastic sport. But there's going to come a time where I'm doing the bag workout and maybe sparring once a week, or sparring once every 2 weeks, or whatever the case might be. And reducing this over time. So I already am kind of starting down this path of transition from, more of a high intensity workout to the more of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training. And like we're sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think if we're going to give any advice to anyone, if anyone wants to take any advice, I think it would just be that if you're hitting that age, or even if you're in your mid or early 30s, and everybody is different as well. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're a genetic freak, then man, continue training like you're 20 into your 50s or 60s. I don't care. But if you're just an average dude, especially if you're an average dude who's been largely sedentary, meaning you haven't really done much for exercise over the last number of years, decade, whatever. That's the other thing too. I mean, people trying to get into shape at our age, highest risk category. Your joints just aren't able to handle what the stress that you're putting them under. You have to start with the lower intensity stuff. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
It's true. So, and I think that having that game plan and that realization, right? I think what ends up happening with people is that they'll become very, well, this is the sport I do, this is the martial art I do, I'm going to do this until the day I die. Well, then what's going to happen is you're going to blow up both your knees and you're not going to be able to do your martial art anymore, right? So you have to have the game plan already set up in your head, how you're going to do it, when you're going to do it, and have these benchmarks, so as we build up, we also have to make sure we plan on the way for longevity.
So why don't we sum up the whole thing by saying this: your training should change as you age. If it doesn't, even if you are a genetic freak, you're probably going to end up just hurting yourself.
Yeah. Agreed, 100%.
And I mean, are you doing this for longevity? Do you want to be able to walk when you're 65? Yeah. Frankly, I do. You just have to be smart about what you're doing. And if you're not 20 years old, don't train like you're 20 years old. Exactly. And quite frankly, people need to understand that you and I couldn't give a shit about the aesthetics of it.
No. Not at all.
Even when I was younger, I wasn't a bar star. Or even when I was younger, I barely ever exercised, the sex muscles. Yeah. I was never an arm curl guy or a bench press guy. I was always the compound movement guy because I was interested in strength and functional ability. I wasn't interested in impressing girls with my guns. Mm-hmm. And frankly, anybody who's listening.
Oh, I think I pulled something, dude.
Yeah. That's supposed to look like a sagging muscle.
Right.
Anyway, we don't give a shit about that. We're talking about being healthy and we're talking about being able to do things. And, the funniest thing in the world what I love the most in the world is when I see these guys come in their early 20s, mid 20s, whatever, and they're ripped up, they're jacked, they're tattooed to the hilt, and they walk in and not to put anybody down, but I mean you're walking in a muscle shirt, and you're the fucking man and everybody should know it,
right? And
then they walk on the mats and they roll with the guy with a spare tire,
right?
Or they roll with the big fat 300-pound bearded guy.
Right, exactly.
And 5 minutes later, they're lying on their back wheezing, and we're thinking, is that it? Yeah. And that's what we care about.
That's right.
So anybody who's listening to this, who's even remotely thinking about paying attention to anything that we've talked about, understand that that's our perspective on the world. I couldn't give two craps if I've got a six-pack for the rest of my life.
Exactly.
I couldn't give a crap if I point to the beach and the girls faint.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
My wife still thinks I'm cute, and that's all I care about.
Yep.
Other than that, I care about staying healthy. I care about being able to train on the mats into my 60s and beyond.
That's right.
And that's everything we've talked about, I think, has come from that standpoint today.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better myself, and I couldn't agree with you more. You know, fundamentally, I want to be able to train martial arts for years and decades to come, and looking forward to it. So I think we'll put a pin in it right there. So, some folks need to get off some people's lawns, I'm thinking, is what needs to happen today.
Who needs to get off your lawn?
Okay, so it's time, folks. It's time. For weeks, I've been keeping my powder dry on this one. There's a group of people in this world that should be, to quote a great man, George Carlin, smashed in the face with heavy mining equipment. This group has for far too long pushed their way around, acted in a way that is counter to our democracy and our liberal principles. They have even killed people regularly. At least I'm pretty sure they do. These people are those of you who drive in the left lane of traffic on Circle Drive or on double lane highways throughout the country. Note here and now, you, the people who are either too arrogant or too ignorant to not drive in the right-hand lane and then use the left-hand lane for its purpose, which is to pass, I hate you, as I hate hell. You need to know we all hate you. You are talked about every day you're talked about every day at work by millions upon millions of people. We laugh at you. We scoff at you. We deride your very existence. Trust me, if we had red turtle shells on the sides of our cars, we would Mario Kart your ass and watch you crash on the side of the road and belly laugh with glee. Now, there are many different types of left lane Larrys. All who should be removed from the gene pool. There's the continue forever in the left lane. There's the not move out of the way of faster traffic, Larry. And the worst of all is the I'm speeding so I can drive right beside another car blocking traffic, Larry. You all need to shoulder check right, then turn on your blinker, shoulder check right again, and proceed with caution, and then drive your stupid ass out of the left lane and off my lawn. Boom.
I like how you got all angry with that one.
I mean, frack.
Okay. It's my turn, huh?
It is.
So who needs to get off my lawn is the weather. Listen, planet. I don't know if you're pissed off about us heating you up with our emissions or what, but have a Coke and a smile and settle down. Gradual changes in the weather are just fine. Want a little bit of wind for a few days? Okay, I'll take that. A bit of a hot spell? I understand. Need to get off a little rain? I can dig it. But when you do all the weather extremes all in one or a few days, it really screws with the program. All this high pressure, low pressure, no high pressure, no low pressure is getting really tiresome. You may not know this, but every time you have a mood swing, the wind throws crap all over the place. And if you want it to be hot, then clear the damn skies for a little while. I don't care if you want it to be a bit cooler either. Just make up your damn mind for a while. And this lawn, it's mine. Get off it.
Damn weather.
And I say this on a day where it was 31 degrees and then it got cloudy and windy as shit.
Of course, right. Well, and it's funny because somebody was asking me like, so how's the weather been in Saskatoon? Has it been raining for you guys? I'm like, rain? We're not allowed rain here. Yeah. Like, it's been brutal. So on our shout outs today, I want to give Aha, and they're not a sponsor in any way, shape, or form, but it's called Aha. Aha.
That's a band.
Or it's I'm not sure. Or
that's Aha.
Aha. Anyway,
okay. Uh-huh.
So it's a sparkling water. It has no calories, but that's it has no calories, but that it doesn't use alternative sweeteners. it isn't sweet at all, and it hasn't been sweetened at all, and it tastes like what it says it is. So this one is a blueberry. There's sweet. There's also a watermelon, which isn't the best, but I don't like watermelon in general, and peach and honey. It is
Peach and honey, but there's no sugar.
But there's no. But that's and it's all natural flavors, which I don't know. It's
Okay,
some
so
chemical,
there's carbohydrate in them, just not.
No,
not
that's
all-
it's
How can you
awesome.
have
Check
honey
it out.
without any calories? Honey
Well,
literally is sugar.
I'm just saying it just tastes like it.
So
So I don't know.
I'm stepping on
I
your
don't know.
shout out. I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's somehow they've done this.
Okay.
It is great to finally have a decent beverage that's fizzy and 0 calorie. The only problem with it is that it doesn't have caffeine. I'd like to, or pardon me, it doesn't have caffeine in it.
Is it
So
coffee?
if they did that, I would completely replace my coffee habit. So I'm going to have myself an AHA. You go out there, you drink them. All right. They're basically a tonic water with no calories and a little bit of a flavor. They're fantastic. So if you're
You
looking to
realize
cut
because
some
you're doing that
calories-
right in front of your microphone, you just gave everyone an ASMR moment. Yeah. Okay.
do it. It's a great way to cut out calories, folks, if you want to cut some calories.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my shout is to vegetable pasta alternatives. My wife eats gluten-free. So for years, we've eaten rice pasta or black bean pasta. Black bean pasta is actually a lot better than it sounds, by the way. It ain't too bad, but it also ain't wheat pasta. And every once in a while, it's not wheat pasta, but it's so similar to wheat pasta that it makes you want wheat pasta once in a while. Well, recently we started buying these frozen squash noodles, and last night I made a barbecue chicken Alfredo with squash noodles, and holy hell was it delicious. Gone are the old days when I have to cook an entire squash in the pressure cooker and pour pasta on top of it. Hello, noodleized squash pasta. Yes, noodleized is a word. We figured that out.
Yep.
I'm shouting you out because you're the second best thing since sliced carrots.
Boom.
Now,
Nice.
understanding that when you're eating this, like they're calling it squash noodles because they slice the squash into string noodles, basically. But you don't feel like you're eating a spaghetti alternative. You're feeling like you just put Alfredo sauce with barbecue chicken on top of a shredded squash. And it's just delicious.
Nice.
And you don't really miss the pasta noodles because it's not like pasta noodles.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it gets
That's
my
fair.
shout out. And by the way, like PC is doing this. I know that all the tree hugging hippies don't like PC because they're like capitalist fascist pigs, own them.
Of course.
But man, I buy it at Superstore, and I'm going to do it all the time now. And they make a zucchini noodle as well, and I'm going to do that one with a meat sauce, like a potato meat sauce.
Yeah.
And
That
it's going to
sounds-
be delicious.
That sounds amazing. Man, it's funny. We both did our shout outs about food today, and it wasn't even planned.
We talked a lot about food, and that wasn't planned either. We were
Man,
supposed to
am
talk
I
about
hungry.
how we half of our lives are gone. hopefully at least not quite half of our lives, but we'll see what happens.
I always say it, and I don't even care, man. I will do whatever I need to do to live as long as possible. I know within reason, of course, but like honestly, if they were like, here, try this and you get to live forever, I would take it. I want to see the heat death of the universe. That's how long I want to
So
live.
do I. This is okay. Just before we go, let's talk about vampire movies and how stupid they are.
Yeah. Okay.
I live forever, and immortality is a curse. Screw you, man.
How is that a curse?
How much do you have to hate life,
right?
To not want to see everything.
Everything.
If I could have been born in like the Neolithic age
and lived through
seen
all
literally
history?
everything from the Neolithic age on, there is so much cool stuff going on in the world.
And just think about the stuff you haven't experienced today, right?
Think about the stuff that the average human will never experience.
That's right.
There are more experiences than 10 lifetimes.
I agreed 100%. Yeah. I want to see I want to live forever.
Yeah,
100%.
considering 10 lifetimes, the average is only what, like 750 years.
Right?
Like that's
Yeah.
nothing.
And
That's a drop in the bucket.
You couldn't read every book ever written. Plus, there's always new stuff happening.
That's the thing. There's always new
Right?
stuff happening. The
Yeah.
world is so fast. And you know what? You get to see the dawn of the wheel and how fire and tools evolved and how we're using them differently. And by the way, the only reason that the daily grind sucks is because we're not alive long enough to transcend the daily grind.
The grind. Yeah.
If you were that, even if you were like 300 years
100 years old.
just 200 years, 150 years old.
Yeah.
You lived long enough to amass a fortune if you're really focusing on it. And once you amass that fortune, once you're independently wealthy, just like do life and experience everything that's going on. There's so much that's so fascinating in the world.
Exactly. No, I agree 100%.
Vampire movies are stupid.
Yeah.
I do want to live forever.
100%.
And I would not
drink the
become
potion.
cynical about it.
I will upload my brain into the freaking consciousness. You download me into a sleeve. I'm good to go.
Yeah,
I don't even
full
care.
on. I don't even need to have my own body.
No, absolutely.
Altered carbon needs to happen.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
Robots.
By the way, I agree on that. That's about going to do it for episode 9 of DeEducated. We will be back with you guys next week. If you would like to check us out, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/DeEducated, or just search the DeEducated podcast on Facebook. We are at patreon.com/DeEducated. Our website is deeducated.ca. It is .ca, right?
.ca, yeah.
Yeah, deeducated.ca. You can find us on YouTube. Just search the DeEducated podcast. And we would love to hear from you guys. You can send us a message on pretty much any of those platforms that we just talked about. We would love to talk with you. And make sure that if you're on our YouTube, or if you're listening to us on any other platform that will allow you to, make sure you subscribe and like. It feeds the algorithm. It allows us to get more places. And if you would like to become a Patreon and support our stupidity, it'll allow us to do crazy things. And we've got lots of things planned in the future, including a lot of crazy videos beyond just us sitting here and, spouting off.
Yammering on.
Yeah, yammering on and giving our opinions on things that you may or may not care about. So you can always become a Patreon. We've got lots of great stuff planned for everybody. Is that even the term? Like, I hear that term before. Is Patreon, is that the right term? I don't even know.
It's a patron.
Patron. You would be a patron, wouldn't it?
You would be a patron, yeah.
Well, where the hell did Patreon come from?
I think people put O's at the end of something. They call it like kiddo and doggo. So
I'm gonna have to ask the guys over at Slamfire because they keep saying Patreon.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's going to do it for us. Thanks for joining us. I don't have a slogan, and I don't care enough to put the energy into getting one. So, Mark, take it away.
Bye.
It's not really a slogan, though. You're just saying bye.
But it's awesome.
You're saying bye like a young kid who's, I don't know,
stupid
special.
And stuff. Special.
In case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.